Everybody, if you could please find a seat and let us begin tonight's meeting. Thank you all for being here tonight and welcome to the City Commission regular meeting this September 22nd, 2022. For those of you who are here for the first time, we welcome you and thank you for participating in this event. For those who are here the first time, we begin our meetings with the pledge, which we'll do shortly, and then we'll talk about any announcements and some changes to the agenda tonight. And then we begin our evening with presentations. Presentations are basically to recognize individuals or groups or events that are important to our community, and we'd like to recognize them. So if I could ask those that are seated to please join me in standing and to pledge allegiance to our flag. You're stuck. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So, thank you all for joining me in that. And now, if we could please ask the clerk to call the roll.
Commissioner Moritas?
Here.
Commissioner Glassman?
Here.
Commissioner McKenzie? Not present at the moment. Vice Mayor Sorensen? Here. Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, we have a quorum. We have one agenda announcement. For those of you who are here on OFR 1, anyone here on OFR 1, that item is going to be removed from the agenda tonight. And so if anyone's here on OFR 1, we're not going to be discussing it tonight. The city attorney asked us that we remove that, and we'll reschedule that for another time. Is there another time that we're looking to put that on the agenda, or is just removing it altogether?
Removing altogether. We
Okay.
have lots of work on that.
All right.
And Mayor, if I could just, what I'd like to do at some point is have neighborhood, folks some time to get together, talk about it. So we'll have some forums and info
Okay.
coming your way to talk together about it.
Very
And what
good.
you'd like and what's
Thank
good,
you.
bad, and so forth.
You're welcome, of course,
Thanks,
to
Mayor.
stay here and participate in the rest of the meeting, but we all understand that if you need to leave, that's fine. Another change, OSR1, there's additional information that is incorporated into the ordinance. The proposal to increase the maximum height and density allowed to be received as an incentive for the provision of affordable housing units in the SRAC zoning district. And we'll be discussing that tonight also. So, do we have a motion to approve the minutes and the agenda as amended?
Moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie? Not present. Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes. And so the minutes from that meeting and the amended agenda are now approved. So just a little announcement before we begin the actual meeting. To help ensure decorum, we ask that you please abide by the following guidelines if you plan to speak tonight. Please refrain from any behavior that is disruptive, distractive, profane, or inhibits the meeting in any way. If you wish to speak on a specific agenda item, please sign up in the City Hall lobby. A member of the City Clerk's office staff will be there to assist. For any additional information regarding tonight's meeting, we invite you to go to our website, which is www.fortlauderdale.gov/City Commission Meetings. I'll repeat that, www.fortlauderdale.gov/City Commission Meetings. And so let us begin, and tonight we'll begin with our first presentation, and that includes a presentation from Mark Bonaconti of the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis and the Bonaconti Fund. Is Mark here?
Right there.
There we are. Stay there. We'll give you the mic.
You want to come down the center? Come down the center.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, allowing me to be here, fellow commissioners. As you may know, my name is Mark Bonaconti. I was paralyzed 37 years ago playing college football. I'm alive here today because of my incredible family, my mom, my dad, my brother and sister, and especially my father, former Hall of Fame linebacker for the Miami Dolphins and the Boston Patriots, and the incredible Barth Green, world-renowned neurosurgeon over at the University of Miami Jackson Hospital. Today we're here because we'd like to talk about the Miami Project a little bit and about how car accidents are still by far the leading cause of spinal cord injuries and brain injuries in the United States and abroad. I have friends who have been killed, friends who have been paralyzed and brain injury because of car accidents, and unfortunately, it's not going away anytime soon. Except for one program that I've had the privilege to be involved with from the very beginning, from the inception. And it was when I met this incredible woman by the name of Melissa Wandell. Her husband was on his way home to see his 8.5-month pregnant wife, and someone ran a red light and killed him. Melissa then dedicated her life to trying to stop people from running red lights. And thanks to a lot of people in the legislature, we were able to pass the Mark Wandell Safety Act. And over the past 10 years, there have been red light cameras installed in municipalities all throughout the state of Florida. Fort Lauderdale used to have the red light camera program, but because of many legal challenges many years ago, it went dark. But luckily, all the challenges have been satisfied. There are no more legal challenges to the red light cameras, and the municipalities are turning them back on, and lives are being saved. I'm here because I believe in the red light cameras. They change the behaviors of people driving, and lives are being saved, and people are not being paralyzed and not being brain injured. The Miami Project is involved because we receive $3 from every citation of the red light cameras. And with that money, we are making unbelievable strides in basic science, clinical research that are improving the quality of lives of all people who are paralyzed. And one day, of course, our ultimate goal is to get everybody out of wheelchairs. But until then, we have to continue our mission. And also $10 goes to trauma centers up and down the state of Florida. So it's really doing not only good to help save lives and make it safer on roads, but it's also doing a lot of good to find cures and to help people in the trauma center. I know we have only a couple minutes, but I want to turn it over quickly to Orlando Torres, who's a friend of mine, who's been in the industry for many, many years and has just a couple of details I think are very important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark before I speak?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So my name is Orlando Torres, and I am with Vera Mobility. I am also a Fort Lauderdale resident. I've been here now for 6 years and enjoying the incredible life that you guys are helping us improve every day. So what I'd like to share is just to help Mark with some of the information on the red light cameras and why. So unfortunately, as he mentioned briefly, Florida remains the third deadliest state for red light camera fatalities in the country. That really hasn't changed, and unfortunately, while the numbers have improved, it's still, because of the increase in traffic and accidents, remains there. If you drive out in the streets every day, why? You just got to look and see how many people are literally running red lights. You can't get through one intersection without worrying about, when I go through that intersection, did they stop? So you want to make sure you always follow the proper things. Some of the things that brought questions to the program back when you had it before was a couple of things. Mostly, it went dark simply because of the class action lawsuit that was going on at the time, reference to business rules. The positive on that is, and there's a lot of misinformation about it, is that in 2018, the Florida Supreme Court approved in a 7-0 vote that the red light camera programs were legal in Florida, could be operated in Florida, and really allowed those cities that continue to have it today to pursue forward. What they did is they all adjusted the business rules to make sure that they met the requirements, but otherwise those programs went on. There really weren't many programs that went dark. Some were added, some didn't, but that was a big difference in 2018 that secured the legality of it. Now, certainly I'm not an attorney, and that would be confirmed, but that was something that was pretty significant, the Supreme Court confirming that it was legal. The other item was the cost of operations for the city. What's very different today, as you all know, technology is better, and it's also cheaper. So the cost of operations of a program today are much cheaper than they were back 5, 6, 7 years ago. So there's an opportunity to be able to do that. What's different today is it becomes a force multiplier for all the other efforts that you're doing. For example, your Vision Zero efforts that you have going on to reduce pedestrian fatalities, improve pedestrian walkways. Red light cameras play that role in many cities around the country. New York City, Washington, D.C., Tampa, City of Orlando just joined to do that. So it's another tool in that arsenal to do that. A force multiplier for law enforcement. It allows, with the new advent of HD video technology, allows law enforcement to be able to do better investigations of crashes, incidents, and really anything that the law enforcement needs to be able to look into that particular intersection to help really continue to do what they do well. And the last thing is it allows, in today's very difficult policing environment, allows enforcement of the basic rules of red light running and running through a dangerous intersection from the safety of an officer doing it on a computer, where the officer is the one that's going to always do that. It always was that way. The officer is the one that finally decides, yes, this is a violation, or no, it's not. So when we look at policing today, every police stop is a danger. So if you can allow your police officers to be able to do traffic enforcement from the safety of an office or a computer or in their vehicle and not endanger themselves and everyone else on the street, it's a force multiplier for law enforcement. There are many communities in South Florida I support throughout Florida, Georgia, and Alabama, but in the Tri-County area, we have 22 programs that still are active. A lot of those, your drivers and our residents, my neighbors, all still drive through those communities. So it's just an opportunity to reevaluate and possibly reignite thoughts and opportunity, not only to do the basic service of saving lives, but can you do more with less in today's difficult environment with technology? Red light cameras, new technology, better pricing, no legal issues at the moment is an option for you as you add to and continue to improve our community. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you very much. And I think that's a subject we're going to bring up at a future city commission meeting with regard to red light cameras. I know the city of Fort Lauderdale had a program once, and through the court issue, the things that you mentioned, Mark, we ceased doing that in the previous commission. And I personally think it merits discussion to bring it back to Fort Lauderdale. So we appreciate your coming today
Mayor.
to remind us of that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Commission, and I look forward to working with you all.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
Are there any Little Leaguers in the house tonight? Okay, Commissioner Glassman has a proclamation regarding Little League Day in the city of Fort Lauderdale.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. When I read about this in the newspaper, I said, we got to bring all these folks down to City Hall and recognize them for this incredible accomplishment. So what I would say is, not a lot of you, so maybe if you guys all come up to the front and fill in this whole well here, I'll read the proclamation, then I'll join you over there and we'll take some photos. So come on up, fill in this whole area up here, and let's show everybody who you are.
All right, let's see how you do.
And just so you know, Mayor, this is the Little League 11U and 13U teams. 11U and 13U teams. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going to read, this is from the Office of the Mayor, City of Fort Lauderdale Proclamation, presented to Fort Lauderdale Little League 11U and 13U baseball teams 2022 All-Star State Champions. Whereas the Fort Lauderdale Little League 11U All-Star team went undefeated throughout the 2022 season and captured a second consecutive state title, becoming the first team in Florida to win back-to-back championships. And whereas the Fort Lauderdale Little League 13U All-Star team showcased their skills on the diamond along the way to the 2022 district and sectional titles before winning the state championship in the intermediate 50-70 division. And whereas Fort Lauderdale Little League was established in 1953. You know, that's when I was established, actually. Come to think of it. Wow.
Was that the beginning of creation?
That was the beginning. You know, we have that in common, guys. The league and I were both established in the same year. That's terrific. Whereas Fort Lauderdale Little League was established in 1953 and has since encouraged and promoted young players to lead by positive example while maintaining a spirit of enthusiasm and hard work. And whereas the 11U team outscored opponents 115-19 on their journey to the Tournament of State Champions, where they finished third out of the 8 participating teams. And whereas the 13U team defeated state champions from Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, and South Carolina on their quest to become the first team in Fort Lauderdale Little League's 70-year history to win a Southeast Region tournament. And whereas the city of Fort Lauderdale is proud to celebrate 11U team members, and forgive me if I botched any of these names, and I apologize, but I'll do my best. 11U team members, Oceana Baker, Billy Burpee, Bobby Calpin, Andre Echarte, Sebastian Echarte, Rhett Herring, Axel Johnson, Luke Mashatka, Xavier Martinez, Alex Milton, and Logan Procacci. And whereas we further recognize Andre Echarte, 11U team manager, and assistant coaches Josh Procacci and Paul Baker. And whereas the city of Fort Lauderdale is equally proud to celebrate 13U team members, Adrian Alhadef, Tyler Burpee, Liam Cerrone, Zachary Dion, Philippe Bicharte, Aiden Gomez, John Diego Gonzalez, Hunter Mercer, Max McCauley, Zach McCauley, Jake Milton, Jared Schwegman, and Austin Wurtzbach. And whereas we further recognize Chip Burpee, 13U team manager and assistant coaches Tony Mercer, Jordan Alhadef, and Philippe Echarte. And whereas the mayor and city commissioners are honored to issue this proclamation to the Fort Lauderdale Little League, 11U, and 13U teams and coaches, and do commend them all on a job exceptionally well done. Now, therefore, we, as city commissioners of the city of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, do hereby proclaim September 22nd, 2022 as Fort Lauderdale Little League 11U and 13U All-Star Teams Day in the city of Fort Lauderdale, and encourage all to join with us to congratulate the Fort Lauderdale Little League 11U and 13U teams on this outstanding achievement, dated this, the 22nd day of September 2022, and signed by our mayor, the Honorable Dean J. Trentalis.
Right here first. Okay, that's good. One. Right here, guys. Okay. 1, 2, 3. One more. Got it. Thank you.
Good.
Some for the parents.
Congratulations, everybody. Congratulations.
That's great. What a year.
Man, that was fun in creation. Is it okay?
Very good.
Okay, let's continue. I invite our fire chief, Rhoda McCur, to recognize Fort Lauderdale Ocean Rescue Lifeguards as the 2022 USLA Lifeguard National Champions. Why don't they step forward, please? Oh, the parade of front and center.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. It's really my honor to recognize our ocean rescue lifeguards. And these individuals, with literally only a handful of competitors, Fort Lauderdale Ocean Rescue's competition team won the 2022 United States Life Saving Association National Competition held in Hermosa Beach, California during the month of August. Led by Casey Francis. Casey, raise your hand. Where's your medals, girls? They left them back there. All right, Casey placed and scored in each of the 15 events she entered, and she won the women's overall high point for the second consecutive year. So she medaled 15 times during the competition. Helping the effort where every point counts towards their win. Shannon Snell, Shannon, raise your hand, wave at everybody, placed sixth overall with a couple of second place finishes in the women's open Taplin relay and the women's beach flags, and a third place finish in the women's open surf ski. Philip McCready and Evan Krieger and Mitchell McCready rounded out the Fort Lauderdale Ocean Rescue team, making strong contributions to the team effort. Spanning 3 days, the surf life-saving competition tested the athletes with 3 to 4 foot waves in the chilly 68-degree water, making for exciting conditions. The team is already training for the next competition next year and will be held in Virginia Beach. And we also have with us Fiona McCready. Fiona, wave at the crowd. She's our mascot, and she now has a hurricane named after her as well, right? She's that awesome. So, and I just want you all to realize that these people are the same ones that work every single day on the beach, protecting our citizens and protecting our visitors and making sure that everybody stays safe. And these individuals, and there are some others that compete in these individual events, that they raise the money to go, they use their vacation time to go and compete, and then you think about all the stuff that they have to transport to these events as well. So from here to California, they had to bring all of their equipment, and they raised the money and paid for it totally on their own. So I think they really deserve a round of applause for their efforts. Their national championship trophy. And I also have challenge coins for each one of them, so congratulations. Job well done. Congratulations, well done. Congratulations, well done. Fiona, you get one too. You have to go like this one. Hey, congratulations. Congratulations. You're welcome. So thank you very much. They represent us well. Another hand for them. Thank you.
Thank you and congratulations. Thank you, folks.
Well done.
Okay, for questions only, though. Okay. Thank you, Chief. So before we begin with our regular meeting, I'd just like to take a moment and, on behalf of the city of Fort Lauderdale, we want to recognize Hispanic Heritage Month. We'll be presenting a proclamation at our next meeting, but I know it began on September 15th, and we would just want to take this moment and make sure that we share our best wishes for the Hispanic community in our city. So at this point, we start with our regular agenda. There are consent items that are on the agenda which are voted on all at once unless a commissioner pulls one of those items and wants to speak on it and vote on it separately. If there is an item that anyone here in the audience wants to speak on that has not been pulled, you would be invited to speak on that item before we vote on the rest of the items. So I'd like to ask Commissioner Moritas, do you have any consent agenda items that you would like pulled?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. CM2.
CM2. Is that it?
That's it, thank you.
Okay, and Commissioner and Vice Mayor?
No, thank you.
Okay, so except for CM2, we have people want to speak on CR2 and CP5, but you're supporting those, correct? Yannick Virgo from AECom and Jack Cummings where are you? Where's Jack? Oh, there you are. You're in support of that. You're in support of that item, correct? Did you want to speak on it now, or it looks like it's going to be voted on? It's going to be approved. Did you want to speak on it nonetheless? Okay. All right, very good. So, except for CM2, do I hear a motion to approve all the rest of the consent agenda
Moved.
items? Been moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie, not present. Vice Mayor Sorensen.
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas.
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes. CM2, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This came up at my district pre-agenda meeting last evening, and maybe, Phil, if you can help me with this, because the question was, people were just questioning about rubber duck. What is that? They were concerned that it might be too much of a party boat. They just didn't have enough information. They couldn't find any. Maybe if you could just let us know exactly what this operation will be for the dockage lease agreement that we're doing.
Yeah, so that name, they do business as Yachting International, so I'm not sure where Rubber Duck, that's a bigger corporation that does that, but they own yachts that are moored or docked on the south side of the river just west of Andrews. So they have a block there from Andrews over to Southwest First Avenue. But it's just like 4 or 5 yachts that they set there along the seawall.
Okay, so that's what this is, just 4 or 5 yachts, dockage for them
Right,
along the seawall.
correct.
Okay, great, thanks, I really appreciate it. Mayor, I can move the item.
No rubber duckies?
No rubber duckies.
Okay. The item's been moved. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen.
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas.
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and CM2 is now approved.
Mayor, can I just interrupt for a second? It just brings to mind something, if you don't mind. Greg, we had been talking in the years past with Water Taxi, Bill Walker, and just exploring docking options and so forth. Have you had any recent conversations or?
Yes, we have, and we
Okay.
have found some slips for
Okay.
their operations, and we have also worked to see how we can migrate them to those slips. And Phil, do you have any other updates other than that?
Okay, great. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, as the city manager said, we've been working with him quite a bit. I actually got a
Good.
meeting next week with Mr. Walker again to talk about some slips that he already has that he may want to try to reconfigure to add additional boats there. So he, understanding at some point he's going to have to leave where he's at now.
Right.
He just an abundance of caution, wants to make sure there's a place for him to go, and understanding with the city manager the importance of that. We've been working with him very closely to make that happen.
Okay. Thank you for your help on that. Great. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate that. Thanks, Mayor. Just want to check on that.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to M1, motion approving event agreements and related road closures for Craftoberfest and Victoria Park Civic Association Halloween Party. We have one person who has signed up to speak, Diane, but it's in support of the item, correct? Where's Diane? Oh, there you are. Okay. Anyone have any questions on this item? There being none, would someone like to move the item?
Moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes, and M1 is now approved. M2, this is a motion approving a comprehensive agreement with the Fort Lauderdale Studio Initiative, LLC, to develop, construct, operate, and maintain a full-service movie studio complex at 1400 Northwest 31st Avenue pursuant to Florida Statute Section 255.065, parens 7. I have several people who signed up to speak. When I say several, I mean like 15 people. Hold on. Mr. City Manager, or Mr. Boileau, rather, or would you like to make who would you like to make the introductory comments?
Mr. Millage may want to come up and speak. We obviously, following our process for P3s, we went ahead and negotiated a comprehensive agreement, which is obviously subject to your approval and any additional conditions that you want to either add or conditions you want to remove, but that's what's up for your consideration this evening.
Okay. Hello, Mr.
Thank you,
Millage.
Mayor John Millage, on behalf of Fort Lauderdale Studio Initiative. As the city attorney mentioned, we're prepared to move forward with a comprehensive agreement. We're very excited because after today, we're really chomping at the bit to get moving with construction. We've got Craven Thompson working hard on a site plan in the plat, and we're pretty far along with design. So in the near future, we'll be meeting with the city manager and yourselves about the final design, which I think you'll be very impressed with.
So let me ask you a couple questions, if I may. There's a lot of development that's going to take place on this site, which is really great. It's been sitting there for a while, and it's certainly a unique site, and we appreciate your client wanting to partner with the city to create an absolutely fabulous, movie studio. A couple questions, though. What happens if you all get started and then there's an abandonment of the site, or?
Great question.
Okay, so
So the
how
lease
is the city
itself-
protected?
Yeah, so the lease itself directly protects you. If it's vacated or abandoned, or we go into bankruptcy, those are all breaches. And frankly, if we don't operate anymore, we're not a qualified project anymore. So any of those events would cover what you're talking about, Mayor.
So how would we clear the site for future use if there's abandonment or bankruptcy of the entity? I mean, have we talked about perhaps a bond being put up?
Yeah, we talked about that. It's not reasonable for us. It's not economically reasonable for us to maintain a bond through the life of this project, but you have protections. The first protection is we have to build this facility within a short period of time, 3 years with reasonable extensions. If not, then you get the property back. If we do that, then we're up and operating. If down the road you can't operate, then you have a fully built facility that theoretically the city
You're saying
would
might have
some,
value,
You'd
right?
have some huge value. You've had 200 million, 150 to 200 million worth of improvements that inure to the city. So it'd be fully developed site.
Okay. And another issue that's come up, and perhaps you can give us some at least verbal assurances about, local tradespeople. The issue has come up before, and we want to make sure that we're bringing a new enterprise into our community, and I know that this business requires a lot of vendors in the trades that and there are people in our community that are in those lines of business. So how do we allow them to participate? Is there going to be like a preferred list, or is there not going to be a preferred list? How does this work?
So generally, and I've learned a lot, I'm not an expert, but I've learned a lot over the last year. And if we need further guidance, we have folks from the team step up. But what I understand is basically there will be, as you said, preferred vendors. There will be a vendor for, let's just say, lighting, and that will be the principal vendor to do that. However, the entity as itself needs capacity because that vendor is not going to meet all the needs. So the operation wants other capacity. So they really want other smaller businesses to be available because what I understand is there'll be other capacity that will be needed. And again, this is just talking about lights. There'll be other lights that will be needed that aren't available because there's a number of shows, or it may be specialty type of lights. So we've talked to Mr. Wells and other businesses that have a concern about this. We want to have that capacity. So with any other P3s, there are issues that come up, and that's just the nature of the relationship. This is an issue in good faith that we'll continue to work on in terms of we want the capacity, we want for them to be productive and have the site available to them, but it's got to be obviously an orderly situation. But the answer is no one's excluded, and the business itself wants the capacity, and so it works in everybody's interest for them to be available and us to make use of them. So if that answers your question.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. All right, so there are a number of people who've signed up to speak. Does anyone on the commission have anything that they want to ask John, Mr. Millage?
Yeah, you, Mayor.
Well, let's start with Commissioner Moritas. Do you have any questions at this point?
Go ahead, Greg. Did you have?
No, Mayor, I'm sorry. I wanted to also add that we have Deloitte available here as well, which performed the financial analysis. If any questions about the financial analysis and what was presented, they're here to answer.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner Moritas, any questions?
John, I'm just curious about the educational opportunities at the site. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, so again, I can have DJ Viella fill in the blanks, but in terms of the school, the film school in particular, that's based on obviously an LA Center model that I've visited several times. And how I understand that is this isn't just a facility that's just doing a public need. It is very important and it's good for the public, but that facility and this facility really needs that capacity. So you can sleep at night knowing that this is a real film school because they need that. They need that talent coming up in training. So it's an integral part of this facility to make sure that happens. We specifically wrote in the agreement that the film school needs to be associated with an accredited college. So we have a number of colleges that meet that, both local and elsewhere, that we're looking at, and we'll meet that requirement. But this will be a significant film school, and as to the parameters, I'll defer to DJ if you want to hear more, but this is part and parcel of the operation, so it has to be effective.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Are there any other school opportunities that might be suggested here for like teaching young people about carpentry or being an electrician?
Yeah, we also agreed in conjunction with Dillard and the school system that we'll do internships through the school system. And actually in this agreement itself, it does specifically mention Dillard and the public school system. So Dillard is really a stone's throw away. And that was really the beauty of this location, is that the school and the property can take advantage of that talent. So it's just a no-brainer. So yeah, there'll be internship opportunities, and also there'll be trade training for trades people there. We haven't really fully developed that, but the site's going to need that too. So that'll be part of the program. That's not in the agreement, but that's going to be part of the overall program to have actually job training.
Okay. Any further questions, Commissioner?
Thank you.
Commissioner McKenzie, do you have any questions on this?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. All right.
Just do want to highlight what you and I experienced a couple months ago when we went out with the partners, and it's bigger than carpentry skills. This is an opportunity for Dillard's High School and other high schools around Miss Mount wanted to kind of do what you did with your food program. You put it in the school systems, and their performing arts director, Principal Robinson, they all participated, and they funded a camp of 150 kids. And just think about from the time we we saw this last year this time and where we are now, and they already hit the ground running. I mean, touching people and impacting the community in which it will reside in. And I think there's more of that to come based on what I have seen from the time I flew out to the original studios, and you and I came back and embraced this idea. And I look forward to where we go, and I trust in the group. We even have a outreach coordinator who is a part of the community that went out and knocked on doors and talked to the HOA presidents, did all this stuff that we always talk about as a commission. Was the community involved? They've done that. I think they'll continue that, and I look forward to an opportunity here that we haven't had since I can remember. So I'm fine, and thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Glassman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. John, I actually have some questions for Alan and you as well, but hold on one second. But Alan, if you look at the actual agreement, 2.5, the mayor touched on this a little bit, but I just want to make sure from a legal standpoint you are comfortable with FSLI's right to terminate agreement language in 2.5.
Let me go to 2.5. The bankruptcy issue that the mayor was speaking of is in 12.4, but 2.5, let me get to,
Well,
right?
this also deals with just being able to terminate and walk away. I'm sorry. Under Article 2, Term of Comprehensive Agreement, 2.5.
Alan, that was the provision, the notice to EPA, if that.
Right, so, correct. So in this case, under the consent order that we're under, we have to provide the EPA and the Department of Justice notice of the fact that there would be a conveyance of a leasehold of this particular property that was remediated. So not knowing exactly what the EPA would do, if the EPA comes in next week and says, you know what, you guys can't do this, they get to walk away. But we've actually provided notice to the EPA. We have not really had any sort of requirements. I think they just wanted notice, but in an abundance of caution, we added the provision so they could walk away if the EPA said no.
Okay, thank you for that. John, so, and Commissioner Moritas touched upon this as well, and I have some of those concerns. So is there any, I couldn't find it, but what is the assurance that this school will actually be accredited and you know, in terms of the higher standards of a school of this sort, and also in terms of minimal enrollment? I mean, do we have that kind of language, or are we thinking about the size of this school? What will that minimum enrollment be? And what are the steps in terms of accreditation? So we know that this is not just a throwaway. This is not, oh, we're going to do a school, but we know that this is really a school.
Right.
Commissioner, it's in section, if you look at section 13.30.
Hold on one second. 13.
0.30. What Mr. Millage represented earlier is contained in that paragraph.
Okay.
13.30? I see 13.3.
Yeah, page 34.
Yeah, well, it says on-site film school in conjunction with an accredited college.
Correct.
So I'm assuming then that college would think that this was an accredited school itself. I mean, does it have to be part of the college, or is it going to be associated with an accredited college? But in other words, would it stand on its own as an accredited film and TV school?
I don't think it's intended to be a standalone school. It's supposed to be in conjunction with another school, like we did with Atlantic College.
Frankly, it could go either way. It could be it could work to be a standalone where the entity wants to do something there, or it could be we run it in conjunction with their program. So it's broad enough, and it could go either way to be. And there's a number of options. Frankly, there's several institutions that are very interested in this. So, and several are local that I don't want to put them on the record, but we've been working this. John Pugh, in particular, has been working on this issue. So we feel pretty strongly that we're going to have a relationship that you're satisfied with, that you know who it is. It's a legitimate entity with curriculum, with enrollment, but we're not far enough along for me to say, how many students and whatnot. So we got to really develop out that relationship. But I'll just say like any other P3 issue, we have to work closely with you on this. So this is something that we can bring back to you and work with you as we develop this out to make sure you're aware of it, we get your input, and you're satisfied with it. So in good faith, we'll continue to work with the city on that to make sure that we just don't do something and it's not what we all agree is sufficient, to meet the need. So we'll definitely work with the city on that.
And how would we know what the enrollment would be? What kind of numbers are we talking about in terms of?
Let me defer to DJ Viola and let him give you kind of an order of magnitude of the model we're working off of, and just give you an idea of that particular program. So, DJ.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for having us today. It was such an exciting day. As far as the education, I can give you some generalities. Obviously, we're clearly going down a couple different paths. This truly stems from even our interest in putting this in the agreement stems from an absolute need for this place to thrive is a crew base. And so if we aren't educating this area on how they can help magnify the industry down here, then anyone we've invited to come down here to make a movie is not coming back. And so this film school initiative is not just because it sounds good on a P3. It is actually an integral part of our business model. And so whether this becomes a more of a typical theoretical film theory film school tied with another local university, that is certainly on the table, because that adds a lot of throughput, that adds a lot of training, that adds a lot of eyeballs on the space. Then you can also look at another side where there are trade schools. We've already been talking to the county a little bit about this also, and making sure that people that know that they start to learn that they have skill sets that are applicable in the film industry. How do they now get enough training to be able to step on a site and actually be a carpenter, be a set painter, be an electrician, be a gaffer, be a grip, these kind of things. So both of those initiatives are on the forefront of us looking at this education, because again, it's part of the model. It's part of the success. Building the buildings isn't enough. It's filling it with the gear. It's filling it with the crew.
Do you envision the school and the students, is it going to actually lead to a degree of any type, or are these going to be courses just as part of the college that it will be affiliated with? But will these classes in this school actually lead towards a degree for folks that attend?
Yeah, I mean, the example that was brought up at Los Angeles Center Studios currently is a film degree. And so I think there are varying ways of looking at that degree. It's one of the, when we had talked to Zoe per Heather's suggestion, we had also talked about different ways that you guys have sort of cultivated the aeronautics school currently, and that's one model we want to be studying also. But to leave with a film degree or leave with as say a more traditional film school, that is absolutely a goal. There's no reason to start this as a fun after-school project. It is, you will have a degree in film. Or if we end up with more of a trade program or both, then that trade program is certainly making sure that you are now bondable, you are now insurable, you can now be on set and you can be part of the network working in the system.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned the county, so I just wanted to ask, in your conversations with folks locally, have you had success with the county in terms of them having some skin in the game on this project?
Yeah, I mean, Sandy Leiterman at the Film Commission has been extremely helpful and talking about ways in which we can start to activate the local community here and inform them in ways in which they can get involved with this. There was a Tradesman Association meeting last week that was held by Senator Geller, and obviously the county now has started to implement their film incentive program, which is certainly a needed flag wave for us in order to attract some business down here.
Okay, great. Thank you. And my last question is actually for our, well, I guess soon-to-be full-time auditor, but I guess currently our interim auditor. So I have a question about the Deloitte report on the financials, and I just want your opinion on this. So it's on page 9. It's Exhibit 2, page 9 of 10, under financials. And basically, it's talking about interest rate risk. So I'm concerned because we all know, the economic environment that we're in right now. So it says, Deloitte performed a sensitivity analysis by increasing the cost of the long-term debt by 1.5%, and the project economics remained intact. Interest rates are unpredictable, and should they increase beyond 7.65%, there may not be sufficient cash flows in the project under the proposed structure. Should we be concerned, and maybe also, John, you can address that as well, but should we be concerned about that language, or that there may not be sufficient cash flows if interest rates go above 7.65%?
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I would say that it's concerned, but maybe there's something that could be, as a additional type of funding to have in mind for that could be set up, or maybe have maybe contingent fund set up for that, or maybe there could be some other source of funding, maybe educational funding that may support that. Like you said, it's difficult to decide what the interest rates are, how far they'll go, but that's kind of a risk that is out there, which is, it's explicit that it says that, and it's something to consider, but might want to have some kind of a backup plan for that if that occurs.
Thank you. So, John, if you could maybe address that, should we be concerned, or as the auditor says, maybe some sort of backup plan, or should we be nervous about if interest rates go above there in
Everybody's
terms of
concerned
your
about
cash
interest
flow?
rates and inflation, of course, and that's why we want to get this going as soon as possible. And every public facility is affected by this. The federal court's affected by this, everything else. So we are moving very fast. So I would say to you this, your protection is, the lender's very sophisticated. So they're not going to lend and build the project if the interest rate's not going to support the project moving forward. So, and if ultimately the lender doesn't lend and build the project, you're going to get the property back. So they're going to be very comfortable if this lender lends and this project is built, that the business entity, the operating entity, can support the operations based obviously on the debt on the property. So that's where I'm comfortable knowing who's involved with the lending side. They're very sophisticated, JSB, and they're not going to move forward if the numbers don't work. So, and if they don't work, then you get the property back in short order. But if we move forward like we're moving quickly, we'll get this up and running and not really face that hurdle of having an interest rate that high. So that's what I'd say to you. The structure of the deal is your protection. And so I don't know of any other controls we can put in it, but that's the best control that we can come up with to protect you. But I'm comfortable if it's up and built, then it's going to be an ongoing concern just based on, the financial backing.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. John, I had some questions about the school, so I can talk to.
Do I need DJ?
Yeah, sure, probably. Thanks, DJ.
Yeah.
Okay, so yearly internship program in conjunction with Dillard High School and other public schools wishing to participate. So how many interns are we talking about?
Well, I think that is a big TBD, and it's not because I expect the number to be, I don't know if I have enough factors to even start to look at that. I would have to understand and work with the local schools to see how many kids can step away for internship programs, when those things would become a scheduling possibility. If we're talking about kids still in school, obviously that has its own scheduling issue. If we talk about people who are, say, recent graduates who want to come through a mentorship program, that's something very much inherent already in our industry. Whether they're coming in as a PA, whether they're coming in as a production assistant, a producer's assistant, or whether they're coming into trades that they want to start becoming journeymen in, or as they start to work up through the ranks. This industry very much works on that in-house training. As a matter of fact, that's very much how our networks work too. When you're building your crew base, is who knows who and who's reliable and who's showing up each day, then you get invited back the next day. And so within that process, there's always layers of of who your key is on set, all the way down to who your best is on set, all the way down onto who's your first day there. So it's already kind of built into the model here. Now we're working with the schools, then that's absolutely who we want to be tapping. We want to find out the kids who truly have an interest in this or don't realize the opportunities there. Again, that was something that came up with the trade association, is a lot of the people in that industry are starting to age out, and they said too many kids today think they need a 4-year education and they leave town, and they aren't aware of how many opportunities there are in the entertainment industry that aren't just actors.
Okay, so have you been talking with Dillard?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
we met with Mr. Charles, and Mr. Charles was the one who actually first brought up this situation that we've heard many times over, which is as kids are starting to get into their high school years, parents are starting to pull them back out of the arts because they're not seeing a path of a career path for them. So that is absolutely where we need to dig
Okay,
in.
so did you talk with him about scheduling, about how many kids would be interested?
No, I mean, it was, we'd have to get into, because obviously there may be kids who are heavily invested in the theater program that don't have an interest in the film side.
Right, but you didn't talk to him about numbers. How
No.
many kids would be interesed? How could we make this work?
No,
Scheduling.
all I can tell you was
Okay,
it was an enthusiastic conversation, and it doesn't stop at Dillard. It actually will extend to many other schools. But the program will have to be sustained by how many opportunities there are at the studio, and that is still an emerging number.
Okay. How many, when you say yearly scholarship funds, how many students is $75,000 awarding funds to?
John, are you more versed on that? Excuse me.
I mean,
Yeah, that hadn't been determined yet.
Okay.
Obviously, in conjunction with Dillard, how they think that could be best used, whether it's a $500 or $1,000 per student, or if it's multiple. So we'd let them make that call.
okay, I mean, just, my concern is, it's just very, there's no definitive minimums here for number of students at the school, number of interns. Could this actually work? It sounds like having that conversation with Dillard to say, just logistically, could this work, and what time, and how many kids? And so it's just kind of concerning, because it.
Well, obviously, we're developing a business, and it's going to develop over time. So, I think in fairness, and also it's a two-way street. So we've got to develop the partner, see what their capacity is, and what our capacity is. It's not, we're not being evasive on purpose. These are commitments to develop these programs in good faith, and we're here to do that. And we're here also to tell you, we'll report back to you and work with the city on those issues, and report back and say, hey, these are the relationships, and get your feedback. So,
Okay.
so we're any of these P3s, these issues have to be worked out. I mean, whether it's, the number of these public-private relationships that I've been involved with, these issues come up. The partners work together. You get input, and so this is general commitment, and we know we've got to come to you as we develop this to say, hey, this is what we're doing. What do you think about this? We think this is great. Do you have any ideas? Do you have any other relationships? So that's how it's going to work out. It's not going to work out where we have a contractual relationship and we walk away, and then you find out about it 5 years from now. What's the outcomes there? That's not the nature of this. The nature of this relationship, and especially because it's a Brownsfield, we'll be reporting to the city on a regular basis on the maintenance, how it's going, with the city manager. All these things will come up. So
Okay.
there'll be a punch list. So I assure you, this will be one of the punch list items where we communicate with the city, what's going on with that, get your input.
And what's the city's, and I'll ask Alan too, but if, come back and it's like, hey, we only could get a couple kids and it's just not working out, and it's limited interest from the high schools. It's kind of,
Well, I doubt that's going to happen. I mean,
you think there's going to be major interest?
I mean, this is a pipeline into an industry at so many levels.
Okay.
And Mr. Charles is here tonight, and you can hear from him as to what kind of interest he thinks
Yeah,
Dillard
I'd
will
love-
have, just
yeah.
Dillard.
No, that'd be
and I think
great.
that'll give you more comfort. He's here tonight, so rather than us speak to, what we think they want, I want you to hear from him, and I think you'll get a comfort level.
Perfect.
I'd be surprised if you didn't.
Great. Yeah, is he here? Yeah, would you mind coming up? That'd be all right? Thank you. Just. Does he need to be sworn in? I forget. No, he doesn't need to be sworn in. Great. If you, come on up, just introduce your name, your role, and yeah.
Good evening, and thanks for having me. I'm Israel Charles. I'm the artistic director at Dillard Center for the Arts, and my primary responsibility is to monitor the curriculum and craft the vision for our award-winning visual and performing arts magnet program here in Fort Lauderdale.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for being here. So what's your, as you kind of have been talking with team here and exploring this, what's your sense in terms of how this could work, number of students that might be interested, scholarships? Give me a little.
Well, and I'm going to speak on the capacity of the artistic director at the school, and I'm not sure of all of the logistics that happen at the school board level and the district level, and they would have to go through all of their logistics. But in terms of the opportunity, I'm thrilled that we have this opportunity to partner in this capacity because it's going to be a great opportunity for our students. I mean, we are the performing arts school, and we are right around the corner. We have actors, we have set designers, we have lighting designers, we have costume students that are studying costuming, in addition to musicians, dancers, visual artists. And so when we discussed this, we talked about possible pathways in a number of ways. And I think in the conversation we had initially, I wasn't aware that there was accreditation process going on, or a desire to partner with a university, which opens up another set of possibilities. Because now we could start talking about, well, let's do some dual enrollment, and let's get our kids in some dual enrollment. So now they're getting college credit, high school credit, and pursuing a craft in the trade. But there's so many opportunities I think is going to be great for the students in our program.
Awesome. And do you see kids going, I mean, do you see them there during the school day, after the school day, both? What's that?
Yeah, I think as he was saying earlier, we kind of have to flush out the logistics, but it could very well be something just because of the proximity that we could do during the school day. You know? And then we'd have to go through all of the, logistical concerns with the school board of Broward to make sure we're in compliance in that area. So I can't really speak for that. We'd have to figure out what that is. But in terms of feasibility, with us being so close, we could absolutely do some things during the school day. But we're an art school, so a lot of stuff happens for us after school. Right. So we have after school rehearsals, so that's nothing new to us. And so, yes, that's even better too, because they're so close, reasonably walking distance, where they can walk over and be involved in some programs after school.
Okay. So that's excellent. It sounds great to me. It sounds like you feel really good about this. You're comfortable with kind of where we're heading and the partnership and level of engagement.
I think so. It's a unique opportunity for our students. It's a unique opportunity for the students in Dillard High and the students that are in this community, because as we were speaking earlier, we talked about the fact that we get a lot of students that come in and they want to be singers, they want to be actresses, they want to be actors, but they don't realize that they're very lucrative careers that are behind the camera.
Right.
Stage management, camera operators, lighting, set designing. And so there's so many pathways for our students, even in visual arts, to come in and work in this kind of environment. And so, I think the possibilities are there to be really fantastic if everything comes together and we're all on the same page.
Great. And has the principal been part of these discussions or updated them, or how?
Yes, she when the gentleman came for the visit, they came and she sat in on the meeting. I think she's excited about it as well.
Great.
We just, as professional educators, the first thing that we're thinking about, man, what's going to make an impact on the trajectory of where our students are going?
Yep.
And if we see that there's an opportunity there, we want to take advantage of that. Because this could be life-altering for some of them. And we're talking about a professional industry that, if I understand correctly, where you're going to have major motion pictures being developed. I mean, that's like moving to Atlanta if you're in the music business, or Nashville or Los Angeles, and being right next to the record labels, or working and having internships at Warner Brothers or Sony. And you're right there and you're developing relationships. In our business, it's a relationship-driven business.
If we had a mountain, we would put Fort Lauderdale up on the side of the hill.
There you go.
That's next.
So
there is one there.
You get an opportunity to get in there and develop relationships at this level. I think that's a great opportunity for our young people.
Okay.
That they would normally have to leave and go elsewhere and work hard to develop.
Right.
And that's sometimes the hardest thing about getting into this business is developing the relationships.
Great. No, it makes me feel a lot better hearing your perspective. Will you come back periodically with John and others to just report how it's going?
Sure.
Progress, and that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Close to retirement, though, so
Okay,
I don't know
well,
how long.
You still
But as long as I'm in
hang
the
you on
mix.
for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
All right. All right, good. Thank
Absolutely.
you very much.
Thank you for hearing
Yeah,
me.
really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
John, I had another question for you. Speaking of that, kind of, I think you spoke so well about the collaboration between the schools. Have you talked to any school board members? I'm just thinking, just wanting to start at some point sharing with them this possibility.
Yeah, I briefed the current chairman of the school board while he was a county commissioner. But no other commissioner. Obviously, there's been a changeover over there.
Right.
Yeah, at the appropriate time, we'll talk to all the school board members, but I can't imagine they're not going to be supportive of this.
I think they would be. It's just
But we'll work the process.
plant the seeds. Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you, John. Greg, who's here from Deloitte? Okay, great. Y'all want to come up? I just want to hear from y'all. Thanks.
Commissioner Sorensen, Vice Mayor, when he's coming up, can I just make a few comments?
Yeah, go for it.
I have had experience working with Broward County Public Schools and
Yeah.
Broward College, developing the avionics program. And what I'm most excited about with this possibility is that it's industry-driven, whereas the avionics program, we've done a good job with Rufus out at the airport. We didn't have that key aviation business/partner who was driving the program and promising the opportunities and the internships and the hands-on experience there. So I think because it's industry-driven, it's the studio is creating the school, it's going to be a much easier, the educational part of it's going to be easy. I know Broward College, I'm sure, is interested. I know Broward County Public Schools will be interested. They love, I think, sir, you said the word opportunity about 10 times. I was kind of keeping track of it until you hit about 10. I love the fact that you said that, because right now it's dirt and we're building opportunities. I guarantee you this will be successful for our students because, I think we all went out. I went out and I toured the Los Angeles studios. And it was huge and it was amazing. And I saw the school that they had there. So it's a lot more than what we currently have. And I know they will build a great program because they are the industry. So I really, truly believe the educational part of it's going to be the easy lift. The harder lift is getting that business who really wants to build up that talent pool. So I feel very confident as an educator myself and as experience building schools and working in our own city that this is going to be super successful. So just my professional opinion.
No, it's sounding excellent. As you know, with P3s, we always like to dig into the specifics. And just
Yeah, well, it's right now
feeling
it's
good.
dirt. So when we built the aviation
Good.
program, we had an airport, we had a school, we
Right.
had all this in place already.
Right.
So because the building isn't even there, we're still obviously very conceptual,
Yep.
and what it
Yeah.
will be. But this is when the conversations are happening. So as they're building the building, they'll build out the programs, and then they'll get those partners on board.
Yep. And I think the earning potential, as was mentioned, for students it's awesome. It's just amazing. Thank you. Yeah, if you would introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Igor Davik. I'm a public-private partnership consultant with Deloitte.
Great. Could you just, for the benefit of public and so forth, just share a little bit, high level, what were you asked to do here? What'd you do? What'd you find, just from a high level?
Sure. Just at a high, to introduce myself and my practice within Deloitte, we serve as public-private partnership advisors to governments across all levels at the state, local, and anywhere in between level. We generally only advise the public sector as they negotiate with private counterparts, so that's our specialty. Within this project, we were asked to review and understand the nature of the proposed facilities, both physical and locational, to evaluate the reasonableness of the assumptions that drove the financial model and forecasts around revenues, costs, city contribution, et cetera, as well as risks. It was to perform market research around demand generators over the short, medium, and long term, and it was to review the mechanical and technical features of the financial model to ensure that it's reasonable. At a high level, our our findings of after reviewing the proposed structure, the assumptions in the forecast indicate that the studio project is viable, subject to the comprehensive agreement, as well as the risks and mitigants expressed in our findings, and final execution thereof.
Great. What concerns do you have?
So like every project, there are a set of risks that are inherent to them, and we've listed them out in the back of the report, which is available in the meeting agenda. They follow standard categories, so every project will have some version of these risks. Capital expenditures, environmental and permitting, revenues and demand, the operations and maintenance side, and the financing side. To every risk we identified, we sought to identify either an available mitigant or highlight where there isn't one. To a few risks that are unpredictable, like interest rates, we sought, and long-term revenue growth, we sought to stress test them with our sensitivity analysis. We identified a mitigant to every risk that we highlighted. For the sensitivity analysis, we stress tested significantly higher interest rate environment and significantly lower future revenue growth. And under that combined stress test, the project remained feasible and the financing remained serviceable. The debt remained serviceable.
Okay. All right, good. That's great. Thanks. Very good news. All right, thank you. John, I just had a school board member text me, Broward County School Board member. They're very excited about this. They are. And they suggested, have you met with Dr. Carlton Johnson? He's the director over internships. So they suggested that'd be someone great to meet with. Already buzz about the project. So that's very good news. Thank you very much for sharing that. Appreciate it. Mayor, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We have a few people who signed up to speak. Mr. Millage, you've already spoken. A couple people can't read this person's handwriting. Gerard Norcia, but you're with the group. These people, yeah, you're all together. Israel and DJ. Okay, so Andrew Nathanson. Andrew, are you here? Come on up. Andrew, followed by David Wells, followed by Shaw Barrows. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, everybody. How are you doing today? I'm here to talk to you about the studio, and I'm here to talk more about the macro than the micro. I was originally going to start off assuming all the due diligence has been done, but obviously you guys have some questions to work through, which is fine. There's always things to be done on a major project such as this. First of all, I want to let you know a little bit about me because you need to know your source, which is that I spent a long time ago, half a decade, with the Miami-Dade County Mayor's Office of Film and Entertainment, the Film Commission, overseeing filming. And I can tell you that a project like this is very significant in terms of bringing business here and garnering exposure, and it does overlap into the tourism industry, which is really, really key. Currently, I work as a producer and location manager, and actually I worked on a project for Visit Fort Lauderdale earlier this year. And so I know how significant it is to get that exposure when projects come here. Back when I spoke to the county mayor, and he asked me if I had anything I wanted to tell him about it, I said, listen, at the time, going back to Miami, the song, the music video was out, and essentially that was a 7-minute promo playing over and over and over again every day to get, which garnered excellent exposure for the community. There's been all kinds of studies done insofar as what the exposure does to draw tourism. Film and tourism is well documented for the Dolphin Tale up in Tampa area. Their box office skyrocketed after that. The movie, If You Build It, They Will Come, that field was active for decades after, with people going there just to be there. And I mean, all you have to do is look at what happened on South Beach, Miami, and actually it overlaps and flows into this area from Miami Vice and Scarface and everything that followed from that. So that's a consideration. My notes are taking my dictation. So when you look at the big picture of this, what you want to do is realize that if you build it, and it draws business here, and you get major productions coming through here, the exposure that you're going to get is going to draw additional dollars. There's a 2.2 multiplier effect ballpark for actual expenditures. So financially, it's definitely in the big picture interest. As far as working out the nitty gritty with vendors or whatnot, I'm sure that could be done. Obviously, education aspect is in motion. It's an early stage, but I'm sure you guys can figure out a way to make that happen. And that's what I've got to say.
All right, great. Thank you so much. David Wells, followed by Shaw Burrows, followed by, there are several people who say that they're designated representative of Susan Grant. Do you have like a team here, Susan? Okay, so.
It's a big fan club, Mayor. She's
I guess
very popular.
So we'll just put those aside. You're just here for questions, right? Yeah, okay. Good evening, David.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. My name is David Wells. I've worked in the film and television industry in South Florida since 1981. I started my career on the TV show Miami Vice. I own two companies here in the city of Fort Lauderdale, the first being Moving Picture Rental, as well as a production company called People First Media. We've been in business since 1989. We employ 7 full-time people in the city, and we also employ an average of 80 part-time freelancers on a monthly basis. We operate and have offices in Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, and Fort Myers. It's also worth noting that I just finished producing a $1.5 million film, independent film called Gymkhana 12 with Travis Pastrana here in the city. I believe that the Fort Lauderdale Studio Project is a very unique opportunity to expand our infrastructure and have proper sound stages here in South Florida. Phase 1 is defined as base project of 1 sound stage and 100,000 square feet of offices and backlot is a really, really good start. When completed in 2025, maybe, just maybe, we could get lucky and have a very small state incentive bill passed for $20 million. We believe that that would support $100 million in production statewide. Colleagues of mine who are experts in film incentives tell me not to expect more than $20 million from our legislators from the state. This is a paltry sum and will not go far, as most productions in Florida shoot on location and not in studios. I believe the studio, when completed, will primarily be used not for feature films or TV series, but for TV commercial production, music videos, corporate video, and events. That's the primary use of studios in the state now. I see this as a predominant use case until 2028. I believe that's the kind of business this will attract. This is the world for which my rental business and many other rental businesses here in South Florida operate in. We rent camera and grip and lighting equipment, primarily lighting equipment, to productions that shoot in studios and on location. The model for the vast majority of studios in Los Angeles, New York, and Atlanta have damaging exclusive vendor agreements with large national companies that have the same business model as mine and others here in town. As the studio is being built on taxpayer-owned land, I believe this comprehensive agreement before you tonight should include language that prohibits the Fort Lauderdale Studio Initiative from entering into any contracts that are exclusive to any vendor, as private studios do in these other cities I've mentioned. Exclusive vendor agreements with studios are not limited to grip and lighting rental, but also to catering, set design, and other services. Any company that wants to rent equipment or provide services to our clients, my clients, who will make use of the studio, they should be allowed to compete freely. Exclusive vendor agreements stifle competition, and it does not allow producers, our clients, who rent the studio to use their preferred vendor, us. Furthermore, it reduces overall film industry infrastructure and discourages the broader small business community from expanding their business to help meet the demand that this facility may develop. I encourage the council to postpone this motion tonight so more details to make it fair and amicable could be developed. Everyone in the South Florida film community wants this studio to become a wild success. I'm available for any questions anytime, 24/7.
All right, great, thank you. Hey, Mr. Mueller, can you come up here for just a second? Mr. Wells, thank you. If another entity chooses to rent space at any of the facilities that are going to be built, are they going to be required to use the owner's vendors, or can they use their own vendors? My understanding was if your clients decided to make, let's say they decide to make a feature film, okay, and they may have their vendor list because of the economies of scale and things like that, that they need to use big operators. But if someone like Mr. Wells wants to produce a TV commercial, will he be required to use your guys as vendors?
So the business model for this, and it's required by the lender who's ultimately going to finance this, is there will be principal vendors for a number of things, lighting included. So there'll be a principal vendor that will.
But are they going to be required to use them, is my question.
So, in generally, yes, but there will be many cases where capacity is not going to be met. So there's going to be a number of shows, number of production where the principal vendor cannot meet capacity. So this business entity wants to make available of the companies that are here because there will be capacity needs that are being met, and there'll be special, like in his case, there'll be specialty lighting and things like that. So we want to work with these local vendors, but the model that he's asking for, we can't finance that. So it would destroy this whole economic model. No entity that we're aware of operates on that basis.
I don't see how the economic model is affected if the main entity, okay, if the main entity is doing business and wants to choose their own vendors, that I could see. I mean, I understand that. But if someone else is coming in to rent, I don't see how that affects the economic model.
Well, there's going to be a principal vendor that really is going to have lighting on site. They're going to pay to have that there. They're going to pay, to do that. And so if at any point they're not providing, anybody is coming in off-site and doing that, it destroys the model. So, I can have Mike Yulian talk to you specifically about, why that won't work. But the lender itself, wants established, large, commercial vendors that are handling these items that are paying, basically paying the overall entity to do that. But in talking to how LA Center and these other entities work, there's plenty of capacity over where we're going to need these other businesses for capacity in these other areas because these vendors aren't going to be able to meet all these needs. But what he's asking for is not something that
So you're
that we can
saying
agree
that
to.
you're saying that in order for your client to be able to operate, their vendors are going to have to be on site. And in order to make it economically feasible for them to remain on site for the use of your client, that there has to be other sources of income in the interim to sustain them. That's your business model?
I'm not sure I'm following you. Why don't I get Mike Yulian to tell you specifically, and then if DJ needs to fill in about how they operate. But I know what he's asking us to do, we can't do. So I don't know, Mike, you want to address this?
Well, the whole idea is to bring business locally. And if you're importing business and shutting these people out, that kind of contradicts the representation. So let's have some clarity
I don't think we're importing, but let's
have some clarity on that. Back in the hot seat, DJ.
This is fun. I'll talk about the operations first, and then
Yeah.
Mike can step in on the finances. The operations comes down to get in the weeds a little bit, it comes down to basically someone's heavy investment of placing their gear on site. And so if we're going to attract businesses that may be facilitating 12 sound stages at full capacity at any given time, fingers crossed, then we need enough gear to facilitate that. And that is not an investment that we are making. That is not an investment we can possibly keep up with. Those are global vendors that supply the industry on every studio in the world currently. Now, Los Angeles Center Studios is an interesting example because they remained independent throughout their last 20 years. And they did have independent as in anyone can come rent there. It's not we're only Netflix, we're only not, there's not just one single anchor tenant there. They had an exclusive with Cinelease because they needed Cinelease to, previously William F. White, then Cinelease, enabled them to invest in the studio with the infrastructure needed, which is not only the gear, but the maintenance on that gear, local people to run that gear. MBS is another major, and MBS has a deal with Netflix. So for instance, Netflix can't shoot anything without MBS gear. Now, that means MBS has first shot at fulfilling that Netflix show. Wherever that Netflix show goes, they're starting with MBS gear. That's all Netflix. So when they moved to Los Angeles Center Studios, then they needed to have a conversation with Cinelease, LA Center Studios did, to say, listen, we really want this business coming in here. It's helpful for all. You guys are going to be in the same sandbox together. Can you find a way to play nice? And the two vendors said, absolutely, we're going to figure this out together. And the Netflix show went on there. So there's always conversations on moving gear globally. There's always conversations on moving gear locally. Currently, we don't have enough gear down here to fill 12 sound stages. And no one that we've ever talked to is ready for that investment, other than the big players who are already sitting in Orlando with some space, who are already sitting down in Miami with some projects. And they're talking about putting an outpost down here, dropping enough gear here. What they typically do when they come into an area is they don't come and conquer. They don't have the bandwidth for that. They come and cooperate. They come and figure out what the area is going to need. Is it more location lighting? Is it more studio lighting? What are the local vendors around here that they can be tapping and they can be partnering with? MBS in particular, I was there last week in LA, and they were talking about a program where they have local vendors actually store their gear on their site, so then they can have their lights through maintenance and repair. And they actually started a club there where they can try to get their gear onto other shows too. It's more of a symbiotic than anything that's more aggressive. There are just demands at the speed in which all this stuff's going. And frankly, we have to find someone who has enough wherewithal and enough financial backing to give us enough gear to partner with us in a manner that can actually facilitate to these clients, or frankly, we're not able to pull the big studios down here.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So, Mayor, can I just ask David a follow-up question on that?
Sure, go ahead.
So, David, if I'm trying to understand the industry, which I don't
Yes,
really
it's
well.
a very complicated
Yeah.
industry.
So what I'm hearing DJ say is you need someone with significant amount of capital and equipment to fill the needs for a big studio that we're talking about here.
Correct.
And so if I'm hearing him right, basically what he's saying is, hey, we don't have enough local providers here to fill all of those needs. So we need someone with massive resources to come in, right?
Yes.
And which I'm assuming do you agree with that idea that we don't have enough here, or is that?
So there's two kinds of rentals.
Right.
There are what I believe, like I said in my statement, I think this studio till 2026, 2027 is going to be relying on our current business. We have David Beckham. We shot a huge job with David Beckham last year, $60,000 rental for me for a lighting rental. It's a big job. We shot it at a studio in Miami. If they came back and they said, hey, we don't want to work in that crappy warehouse down in Miami, we want to work up here at this studio. If there's an exclusive vendor agreement with the two big lighting companies, one is called Cinelease. Been a lot of national consolidation. Big hedge funds own these companies. Cinelease is owned by a hedge fund, and so is MBS. I do business with both of those.
Gotcha.
And they're friends of mine.
So that would preclude you from using
Correct.
facilities.
So
Is that right?
David Beckham's people for Puma, they come here because it's a great studio to my backyard. And I would not be able to operate there under an exclusive vendor agreement because Cinelease or MBS, perhaps they're a tenant there, or perhaps they're not a tenant there, but they still have the exclusive agreement. A lot of these studios, and let me finish the question.
Yeah.
Like MBS is in Orlando, but they just service Rap Shit, a major motion picture in South Florida. They just put gear on trucks and they bring it down here and they rent warehouses or they store it or they put it on set and it's a hands-off deal and that's the way it works. But in the beginning, and we're not going to be going after those, $100 million pictures, but there's no shortage of grip and lighting companies in North America that's not chasing that business on a continual basis.
Okay.
And there doesn't have to be agreement. In New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, MBS and Cinelease control those studios, but not all of them.
Okay. So let me
70%.
ask
There
you
are
this.
models that exist with studios that do not have exclusive agreements
Okay.
with grip and lighting vendors.
So what if DJ, I'm not saying he will, but what if the idea was, hey, 80% of our space or 80% of our projects are going to be exclusive to MDS or whoever.
MBS, yeah.
And 20% we're going to carve out, and that's going to be open to the possibility of competition and so forth. Could something like that be of interest? Would that?
No, because, I mean, we just think it should be a free market, you know?
They shouldn't be
Problem,
allowed.
David, but the problem, as this just was explained to us, is that some of these people might be financially invested in the studio. So to some extent, they're going to have an equity interest, and therefore they're going to want to return. You're not going to participate financially in this studio. You just want to come and go as you need it.
No, I'm not aware of CineLease or MBS investing in any studio facilities to the extent that they've got capital involved. Are they keeping equipment on site? Sometimes, in most cases, not. So, for example, MBS services like 11 studios in Atlanta, including Pinewood. They don't have offices in every one of those studios. They've got a warehouse close by. They bring the equipment in. The same would operate here.
If you can't compete for all of the space because you don't have the equipment for all of the space, why would you need to compete for all of the space?
Say that again?
If you're, again, I don't know anything about the industry, but if you're saying, hey, I don't have enough equipment to utilize all of the space in the new studio. In other words, I could only use a portion of it because I David, just don't have enough of the equipment. What would be the negative to the portion that you really can't use to be used by another entity?
Sure. I mean, we just wouldn't bid on the work. If we couldn't handle the capacity,
exactly,
we just wouldn't bid on the work. So let me give you an example.
Right. So you bid on the 20% you could.
Yeah. So, I'll give you an example. We do huge jobs, and so we lease from MBS for a week at a time, and we supplement their gear with our gear, but it's an open bid. I don't want to tear apart their business model, but this is a triple P, right? And so if it's a private studio, we'd have no clout, we have no claim on this. But the fact that it's on, city property, et cetera, I think that all businesses in South Florida should be able to compete equally on this. We're not going to be going after Netflix. Netflix is going to use MBS. They're going to use CineLease. They have contracts with those companies, Okay. But the other business, which is going to be the bulk of the business in these studios in the first 5 or 6 years, should be open to all. And that's not limited to grip and lighting. That's set design. That's catering. Any trade.
Okay. All right. Let's get John's. Did you want to give some feedback to that, or?
Yeah, just briefly. Our business model is not going to be based on substantially commercials. It's going to be movie and TV production. So I think we can work this issue out, just like the issue you raised with the school and how we're doing that. In good faith, we'll continue to work on this. We'll meet with Mr. Wells, see where there's opportunities. But, we're not looking to live on commercials. Will they do them from time to time? Sure, I'm sure. But the business model is based on the film and TV. So I'm sure we can work this out in terms of we can all live together. So why don't you just let us in good faith work with him? We know who he is. We got to go through a process with you. This isn't the last time we're coming here. We got to go through a development process. So in the nature of this relationship, if you're not happy with us and what we're doing, the relationship doesn't work out. So just let us work on this. I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill with this, and I think there's plenty of room for us all to work together. And we'll give a commitment to work on this just with the other issues that you raised. We're added to the punch list, and we'll bring them back. And obviously, if we don't work closely with you, then you're not going to be happy with us, and we can't get things through and as we need things from the city from time to time.
And it seems like there's a niche there.
Yeah, I think we can work this out. We don't have it
today,
and we don't have language that we can solve, but I can just say on the record, in good faith, we'll figure something out. We can all live together. So.
All right. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you, John.
All right, thank you.
Greg Bruton, you're just here to support, right? Okay. And Tracy Jordan, where's Tracy? Also here to support, right? Okay. And lastly, Shaw Burrows. Is Shaw here? Anyone else wish to speak on this item? Mr. Burrows will be the last. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the committee. My name is Shaw Burrows. I'm a cinematographer and a producer. I got my first movie camera in 1967. This industry that we're talking works. It works in many, many ways. I've had a great career. I've got 8 Oscars under my belt, multiple music video awards, Andes, Emmys. I've been doing this I got my first paycheck in 1976. There's a couple of things that I want to talk about really quick. One is the education side of it. If this is going to be a trade school, it cannot be a fail school. Because what I see in today's youth is, yeah, we want to be in the movies and da-da-da, right? It's not for the weak of heart. People die making movies. I've been injured. My rotator cuff finally went after carrying a camera around on my shoulder for 40 years. Equipment is heavy. It's a very, and can be a very unsafe place to work. My concern would be with the education side of it is the qualifications of the instructors, the expectations that the students have leaving. Because it's not you come in, get an internship. You know, internships are interns, they don't get paid. PAs get paid. We, as an industry, need qualified people, and I'm afraid that there are too many places out there now that are putting out unqualified people. People who are just working a mouse. That's it.
All right.
The other thing is as a producer, and I've worked in major studios around the world, I think that the exclusive agreements that they may be asking for are unfair. I've seen them work. Yes, if Netflix wants to use this gear, that's fine. But if I have a little tiny 5.5 mil movie that needs to be on a soundstage, I don't want to necessarily work with this gear. I have my own truck, just like David does. You know, I have my own crews. Other thing I had a question about is the employment of this. Is this going to be an IA house? You're going to be independent.
Each show will determine.
Okay.
The size shows we're going after.
Yeah. No, I realize that, but if I've got a
Sir,
little
can we kind of wrap
5.5
up our
mil
comments?
thing.
Could we wrap up our comments because you've gone past your time?
Thank you for listening to me, but.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Okay, any further questions on the commission? We don't have to close public hearing right now. So do I hear a motion to approve the comprehensive agreement?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman,
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas.
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and the comprehensive agreement is now approved. Congratulations, folks. Thank you. Mr. McKenzie is ready for his close-up.
My what?
Your close-up.
Oh, yeah, please. Do I use in-house camera or?
R1, appointment of board and committee members. Could you please read the names into the, thank you, everybody. Please read the names into the record.
Yes, for the October 3rd resolution, Consensus Public Art and Placement Advisory Board, Lynn Marks, nominated by Vice Mayor Sorensen. Nuisance Abatement Board, Avigdor Pemper, nominated by Commissioner Glassman. Then Budget Advisory Board, Ronald Goff, nominated by Commissioner Moritas. Economic Development Advisory Board, Kenneth Hers, nominated by Commissioner Moritas. Education Advisory Board, Pamela Aiken, nominated by Commissioner McKenzie. Aviation Advisory Board, Mark Volchek, nominated by Commissioner McKenzie. Community Appearance Board, Paul Robinson, nominated by Commissioner Moritas. And for tonight's resolution, Board of Adjustment, William Kent, nominated by Commissioner Glassman. Cemetery System Board of Trustees, Mark Van Rees, nominated by Mayor Trentalis. Citizens Police Review Board, Mark Dickerman, nominated by Commissioner Glassman. Historic Preservation Board, Alan Jones, nominated by Vice Mayor Sorensen. Marine Advisory Board, Robin Chiarelli, nominated by Commissioner Glassman. And Parks, Rec, Beaches Board, Rochelle Coetzee, nominated by Commissioner Glassman, and that rounds it out.
Are there any further names to be added to the list? There being none, would someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduce.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, appointing or nominating, if applicable, board and committee members as set forth in the exhibit attached hereto and made a part hereof. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes, I want to thank all those folks who have agreed to participate in these boards and committees. Thank you for your contribution to our city. R2, resolution authorizing the acceptance and execution of Amendment Number 1 of Joint Participation Agreement, Financial Management with the Florida Department of Transportation for State Road A1A pedestrian light installation. Any questions with regard to that? There being none, would someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduced.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, authorizing acceptance and execution of Amendment Number 1 of the Joint Participation Agreement with the State of Florida Department of Transportation, project number 424027-2-58-01 for the installation of pedestrian lighting on the west side of State Road A1A from the north end of the South Beach parking lot to Sunrise Boulevard by extending the completion date until project is completed or December 31, 2023, whichever occurs first, and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes. Are these going to be turtle compliant? Or the turtles, once they're across the street, it doesn't matter? Okay. R3, quasi-judicial amendment to the site plan level 4 beach development permit, Birch Road LLC and Cheston MM LLC. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in. Commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Commissioner Moritas, do you have any disclosures?
916, yes, 916, communication with Dev Mawani.
Commissioner McKenzie?
A phone call, Dev. Whining.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes, site visit and also met with Deb Motwani on July 13th, 2022.
And Vice Mayor?
Yes, with the applicant.
Same, the applicant and their representative. I just realized I'm going to have to remember 3 new names now.
You could do it.
Anything's
Need a
possible.
chart. I'll need a seating chart.
We'll get you
do
cue
it.
cards.
Okay.
We're betting on you.
Okay. No one has signed up to speak except Mr. Lockery with regard to questions. And is he here? Oh, there you are. Okay.
Go over there, sitting quietly.
Okay. Someone move to close public hearing?
Move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes, and public hearing is now closed. Would someone like to introduce the
Introduce.
quasi-judicial resolution? It's been introduced.
And that's for approval?
Yes.
Absolutely.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving amendments to the site plan associated with the approved beach development permit for the multifamily residential project located at 530 North Birch Road, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, in the North Beach Residential Area Zoning District to increase the building height from 120 feet to 144 feet, add 11 dwelling units, and approve a minimum building tower step back of 10 feet in the Central Beach Regional Activity Center. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes. And that is now approved. Okay, so the public hearing items, I'm going to really run through them quickly. They're all regarding rezoning to parks, recreation, open space. Stop me if you have a question with regard to any one of them. And then when we get to number 8, which is not one of those zoning changes, we will, I will, there's one person who signed up to speak anyway, James Labrie. So,
8 of them.
yeah, so I'm going to run through them quickly. PH1, public hearing, quasi-judicial ordinance approving a rezoning from business, from Boulevard Business to District Parks, Recreation, Open Space. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in. Commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Any disclosures, Commissioner Moritas?
No.
Commissioner McKenzie?
This is Lockery. Yeah, I think I spoke with Lockery.
Okay.
This is Family Dollar, right? I mean, Dollar General. Anthony.
No, this is converting to they're converting
Yes,
it to park space. These are all
Rezoning
converting
for
to
parks.
park space.
Oh, this is the park space one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm good.
Okay. I have no disclosures. Commissioner Glassman?
None.
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 This is that, yeah.
No one has signed up to speak. Someone like to move to close public hearing?
Moved.
Move second.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yep.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes, public hearing is now closed. Would someone like to introduce the ordinance? It's been introduced.
In ordinance amending section 47-1.6.b of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida Unified Land Development Regulations through the revision of the official zoning map of the City of Fort Lauderdale and Schedule A revised compilation attached thereto and by reference made a part thereof so as to rezone from B1 Boulevard Business District to Parks Recreation Open Space District, all of lots 13, 14, and 15, Block 1, Lauderdale Manor home sites, according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 34, page 21 of the Public Records, Broward County, Florida, located west of Northwest 26th Terrace, north of Northwest 18th Court, east of Northwest 28th Avenue, and south of Northwest 19th Street, all said lands being the City of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes, and PH 1 is now approved. I don't think so. We can't group these all, can we? No. Yeah, I know. I know. PH 2, public hearing, quasi judicial ordinance approving a rezoning from planned unit development to Parks Recreation and Open Space District. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in. The commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Any disclosures, Commissioner Moritas?
No.
Commissioner McKenzie?
None.
None for myself. Commissioner Glassman?
None.
Vice Mayor?
None.
Someone like to close public hearing?
Moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
You scared me. Yes. Public hearing is now closed. Someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduce.
It's been introduced.
In ordinance amending section 47-1.6.b of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida Unified Land Development Regulations through the revision of the official zoning map of the City of Fort Lauderdale and Schedule A revised compilation attached thereto and by reference made a part thereof so as to rezone from planned unit development district to Parks Recreation and Open Space District, all of parcel 2, Georgian Oaks, according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 175, page 178 of the Public Records of Broward County, Florida, located west of Southwest 15th Avenue, north of Southwest 24th Street, east of Southwest 17th Avenue, and south of Southwest 23rd Street, all said lands being the City of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes, and that item is now approved. PH 3, public hearing, quasi judicial ordinance approving a rezoning from Airport Industrial Park District to Parks Recreation and Open Space District. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in. Commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Any disclosures, Commissioner Moritas?
Is a neighborhood president a disclosure?
No.
Okay, no. I do have a question.
Yes,
though,
ma'am.
when it comes time for questions.
Okay. Commissioner McKenzie?
No. None.
None for myself. Commissioner Glassman?
No.
Nope.
Vice Mayor, none. Okay, so would someone like to move to close public hearing?
Move to close.
Second.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes, and public hearing is now closed. Commissioner Moritas.
Yes, this piece of property in my district, I did get a communication from the neighborhood president. She was concerned about this area being home to a native turtle species, and she was wondering what kind of access the neighbors would have to this property. She didn't want the property to be damaged or the turtles to lose their home based on people tromping around on this piece of property. So Phil, can you kind of explain to me so I can go back to neighbors and talk about, she wanted to clarify the concept of neighborhood traffic encouragement and neighborhood access, if we could kind of better define that. What do we think it's going to look like back there?
So Commissioner, this goes back to the early days when we did the plan for what we would do at the park. So we'll definitely work with the neighborhood on what's going to happen there, but it would be open to the public. So the idea would be there would be some small walking trails through the property with some educational signage on the native plants and flora and fauna and the turtles and whatever else may be there. So the majority of it in that parcel's not going to be damaged at all. There'll be some exotics if there's any exotics removed, so it's all native. And then any walking paths will probably try to take advantage of anything that's already there that's clear that, so we don't have to take out anything else. But the plan itself is, at this point, hasn't been determined on the number of trails and how that would operate. But it would, have some signage, educational signage, and would be open to the public during certain hours of the day.
Do we need to remove any of the property for parking? Like, where will parking be in that parcel? Or,
Well, we haven't gotten that far yet on what, if any, parking is going to be needed and how much would be needed. At the time, back when we were looking at this, we were talking about maybe utilizing a little bit of where the old fire station was to the north. And depending on what happens with that property, we might be able to do that, or we might be able to just put a couple on-street parkings.
maybe parallel or something?
Yeah, parallel,
It's
And,
not
and,
too
and Commissioner, just to note, for this particular parcel, there is an underlying zoning for conservation, so we would have additional restrictions as well.
Right, yeah, I did see that was conservation and maybe a water drainage or something. Okay, because it's not too close to too many neighbors in terms of walkability, but
I don't know.
it's not that close. I mean, people really can't walk to it, so you may need to have some parking considerations.
Yeah, I mean, it's the closest neighborhood to be just north of the church there in Palmer
Right.
Village, in that area. I
Kind
mean,
of a
some of those
hike.
individuals would walk, but it would be mainly people that would drive there or bike there or whatever.
Yeah, maybe
But
bike.
again, it's probably not going to be something that's going to draw a large crowd.
No, I don't
Maybe
think
a few bird people and turtle people that would come there, but it's not going to be a huge draw on a daily basis for individuals trying to find a place to park.
All right, thank you. I'll report back. I'm good.
Would you like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduced.
Please call the roll.
In ordinance amending section 47-1.6.b of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida Unified Land Development Regulations through the revision of the official zoning map of the City of Fort Lauderdale and Schedule A revised compilation attached thereto and by reference made a part thereof so as to rezone from Airport Industrial Park District to Parks Recreation Open Space District, a portion of Lot 44, according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 63, page 8 of the Public Records of Broward County, Florida, located west of Northwest 15th Avenue, north of West Cypress Creek Road, east of Northwest 21st Avenue, and south of Northwest 64th Street, all said lands being in the City of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes, and the ordinance is now approved. PH4, public hearing quasi-judicial ordinance approving a rezoning from Regional Activity Center, City Center District to Parks, Recreation, and Open Space District. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in. The commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Commissioner Moritas, do you have any disclosures?
No.
Commissioner McKenzie?
None.
Commissioner Glassman?
None.
Vice Mayor?
None.
I have none. Will someone please move to close public
Move
hearing?
to close the public.
Second.
hearing.
Been
Commissioner
moved and
Glassman?
seconded.
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes, public hearing is now closed.
Introduce.
The ordinance has now been introduced.
In ordinance amending section 47-1.6.b of the City of Fort Lauderdale Unified Land Development Regulations through the revision of the official zoning map of the City of Fort Lauderdale and Schedule A revised compilation attached thereto and by reference made a part thereof so as to rezone from RACC Regional Activity Centers, City Center District to Parks Recreation Open Space District, all lots of 1, 2, and 3, Block 60, Town of Fort Lauderdale, according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book B, page 40 of the Public Records of Dade County, Florida, less the east 15 feet of said Lot 1 located west of South Andrews Avenue, north of Southwest 9th Street, east of Florida East Coast Railway, and south of Southwest 7th Street, all said lands being in the City of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes, and the ordinance is now approved. That was PH5, correct? 4? That was 4, I'm sorry.
4.
Yeah, we're on to PH5.
4.
Yeah, that was 5.
That was 4.
That
Now
was,
we're on 5.
yes, that's what I'm saying. That
Yep.
was 4, now we're 5. Yep. Public hearing, quasi-judicial ordinance approving a rezoning from residential, single-family, low-medium density to parks, recreation, and open space. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in, and the commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Any disclosures, Commissioner Moritas?
No.
None.
I have none. Commissioner
None.
Glassman? Vice Mayor?
None.
None. Someone
Move
please.
to close the public hearing.
Second.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles?
Yes, public hearing is
Introduce.
now closed. The ordinance has now been introduced. Please call the roll.
In ordinance amending section 47-1.6.b of the City of Fort Lauderdale Unified Land Development Regulations through the revision of the official zoning map of the City of Fort Lauderdale and Schedule A revised compilation attached thereto and by reference made a part thereof so as to rezone from residential single-family low-medium density district to Parks, Recreation, Open Space District, all of lots 13 and Park Block 4 Sunrise according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 28, page 42 of the Public Records of Broward County, Florida, located west of Northeast 26th Avenue, north of Northeast 8th Street, east of Middle River Drive, and south of Northeast 9th Street, all said lands being in the City of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and PH 5 is now approved. PH 6, public hearing, quasi-judicial ordinance approving a rezoning from one-family detached dwelling county district to Parks, Recreation, and Open Space District. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in, and the commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Any disclosures, Commissioner Moritas?
No.
None.
None for
None.
myself.
None.
For Commissioner Glassman, and none for the Vice Mayor. Someone like to close the public hearing?
Move to close public
Second.
hearing?
Been moved and seconded?
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes. Someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduce.
PH 6 is now introduced.
In ordinance amending section 47-1.6.b of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida Unified Land Development Regulations through the revision of the official zoning map of the City of Fort Lauderdale and Schedule A revised compilation attached thereto and by reference made a part thereof so as to rezone from one family detached dwelling residential zoning district to Parks, Recreation, Open Space District, all of Lot 9, Block 1, according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 57, page 41 of the Public Records of Broward County, Florida, located west of Northwest 10th Way, north of Northwest 11th Terrace, east of Twin Lakes Boulevard, and south of Northwest 47th Street, all said lands being in the City of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and PH 6 is now approved. PH 7, it's a public hearing, quasi-judicial ordinance approving a rezoning from residential single-family low-medium density to Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in, and the commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Any disclosures, Commissioner Moritas?
None.
Commissioner Glassman?
None.
None.
Is this Annie Beck Park? What's 2 North Victoria Park Road?
Is that, not Annie Beck,
Bill?
what's right there where the festival, the
That's Annie Beck Park.
Victoria,
Commissioner
Doesn't
Glassman,
have
this
a
is
na-
your district.
Yes, it is.
right at the bend, right? It's
At the
right at the
curve,
bend,
it's,
Commissioner?
it's
Phil,
Victoria
take it away.
Park at the end of Broward Boulevard, where it makes the curve.
Victoria Park.
Victoria Park.
Victoria Park.
Victoria Park.
It's Victoria. Yeah,
Yeah.
Annie Beck's
Victoria Park
down
Park.
the road.
Okay.
Move to close
I'm
public
just,
hearing.
I'm just testing the district commission. So.
You used to be the district commissioner.
I knew the answer.
No, you didn't. Good answer. Good answer.
You read a book there once.
Victoria Park Road.
Okay. Any disclosures, Commissioner Moritas?
No.
Commissioner McKenzie?
None.
None for myself.
I did
Although
a site
had
visit to
I have had a
Victoria
site
Park.
visit.
I did a site visit to Victoria Park.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I used to swim over there when I was a kid.
Vice Mayor,
None.
Any disclosures? Okay. No one has signed up to speak. Please call the roll
Close the public hearing.
for closing public hearing.
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
We did disclosures
Oh, I
twice.
forgot to do the motion. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, a public hearing is now closed. Someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduce.
In ordinance amending section 47-1.6.b of the Fort Lauderdale, Florida Unified Land Development Regulations through the revision of the official zoning map of the City of Fort Lauderdale and Schedule A revised compilation attached thereto and by reference made a part thereof so as to rezone from RS8 residential single-family low-medium density district to Parks, Recreation, Open Space District, all of lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, Block 9, Victoria Park, corrected amended plat according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 10, page 66 of the Public Records of Broward County, Florida, located west of Gordon Road, north of East Broward Boulevard, east of North Victoria Park Road, and south of Northeast First Street, all said lands being in the city of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes. And PH 7 is now approved. PH 8, public hearing and adoption of a resolution approving the Parks, Recreation, and Beaches Advisory Board's recommendation to allocate additional funds in the amount of $1,087,500 to finance 8 approved parks improvement projects through the Parks and Recreational General Bonds Land Acquisition Funds assigned to District 4. Okay. I read the backup and the amendments. I think Poinsettia Heights is comfortable with this. Do you want to speak, James? You're good? You're good.
And how do you know Poinsettia Heights is?
Huh?
How do you know that?
Any questions regarding this? There being none, someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduced.
Got to close the public hearing.
There was no, do we have to close public hearing on this?
It's consistent with the others, it's public hearings.
Okay,
All
I
right.
take
It's just-
that back.
It just
and
doesn't have that other disclosure aspect to it, so.
I rescind and I
All right, so we'll
move
move to
to close the public.
All right, so there's a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
It's been seconded.
Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Okay, so public hearing on PH 8 is now closed. Someone like to introduce the resolution?
Introduce.
It's been introduced.
Hey,
Sorry we got you up, Susan. Go ahead.
A resolution of the
Poinsettia
City
Heights
Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, approving a recommendation from the Parks, Recreation, and Beaches Advisory Board to allocate additional funds in the amount of $1,087,500 to finance 8 approved parks improvement projects through the Parks and Recreation General Obligation Bonds Land Acquisition Funds assigned to District 4 pursuant to the terms and conditions outlined in the City of Fort Lauderdale Resolution Numbers 18-261 and 20-08, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
First, thank you, Vice Mayor Sorensen, for this agenda item.
You're welcome.
I vote yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Good team
Yes.
effort.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Great team effort. Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes. And PH 8 is now approved. OFR 1 has been removed from the agenda, so we're on to OFR 2. First reading, ordinance amending the City of Fort Lauderdale Code of Ordinances.
Can I ask a question
Titled-
about that real quick? OFR 1?
Yep.
Just so I can get back to my neighbors, it is not time certain. We don't know if it's coming back or when, or it's definitely, it will. We just don't know when.
There's extensive work, and so we don't have an idea or estimate right now.
Okay,
But we certainly will be engaging further with the community,
great,
neighbors.
thank you. And just make sure you include all communities. I know, or districts. I know the problem may be down in District 4, but I know that maybe my district has a different opinion. So
We will
just
be
make sure-
inclusive.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, OFR 2, first reading ordinance amending the City of Fort Lauderdale Code of Ordinances, Section 8-55.2, titled Franchises, to allow one option to extend concession franchises for additional term not to exceed 5 years. Anyone have any questions with regard to this? Bob Ferenchik, did you want to speak on this? Is Bob still here? Okay, how about Pratima? She's gone too, had to take care of the baby, okay. All right, those are the only 2 people that have signed up to speak. All right. So, would someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduced.
Introduced.
In ordinance of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, amending Chapter 8 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, titled Boats, Docks, Beaches, and Waterways, amending Article 3 titled Public Beaches, amending Section 8-55.2 titled Franchises to allow one option to extend concession franchises for an additional term not to exceed 5 years, providing for severability, providing for conflicts and repeal, and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and the ordinance is now approved. OFR 3, this is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, deleting Chapter 3, Article 1, Section 3-1, entitled Advertising Vehicles or Watercraft Prohibited of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Lauderdale. No one has signed up to speak. Does anyone have any questions? If not, would someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduce.
The ordinance has now been introduced. Please call the roll.
An ordinance of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, deleting Chapter 3, Article 1, Section 3-1, entitled Advertising Vehicles or Watercraft Prohibited of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida Code of Ordinances, providing for severability, providing for conflicts and repeal, providing for correction of scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and the ordinance is now approved on first reading. OFR 4, this is a long time coming. It's the first reading, creating an ordinance in the City of Fort Lauderdale Code of Ordinances. Smoking or vaping in public parks or on a public beach is prohibited. One person has signed up to speak. Dr. Hummel, are you still here? You support it, right? You're very welcome. Someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduced.
An ordinance of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, amending Chapter 19 of the Code of Ordinances for the City of Fort Lauderdale titled Parks and Recreation, amending Article 1 titled In General by creating Section 19-7 titled Smoking or Vaping in Public Parks or on Public Beach is Prohibited, to prohibit smoking or vaping in any city park or any city beach area, with the exception of unfiltered cigars, providing for severability, codification, repeal of conflicting ordinance provisions, and an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Can I just make a comment before we vote, Mayor? And my comment is this. I mean, I don't have a problem with the ordinance. What I do have a problem with is we put ordinances on books that we can't enforce. And what I do not want to see happen is that we take from public safety our police officers and have them out, writing tickets for people smoking or asking people to leave parks. I think they have enough on their plates of just policing. And if we're going to do this, we need to think about how we can staff this in the future and fund it without taking away from public safety.
Well, I think that certainly this allows us to start putting up signs saying no smoking. I mean, there are a lot of people that speed in their cars, but we can't cite everybody that speeds. So at least we have the law on the books. If it becomes an egregious habit that a law enforcement officer should witness, I think they should have the tools to be able to prevent that from continuing. So obviously every law that we have or every ordinance that we have is not going to be 100% enforceable, but I do think that we should have that tool in our toolbox in case that should happen. Don't you think?
No, I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm fine with it. I'm just saying, if we decide that we're going to ask our police officers to do this, then we need to give them the tools, we need to give them the resources and the manpower instead of adding to what they already have to do day in and day out.
All right.
Mayor, I would hope that the city would do a really good education campaign on this. And then, as with many other things, you have to just rely on folks being good citizens, understanding, like you said, the signage. We do an education campaign. I mean, no, we don't want the beaches to be overrun with police just looking for people smoking, but this is something that's really needed. And also, hopefully, people understand that it's not because of our lack of desire to do this all these years, but we just were preempted by the state from doing this all these years. So you're working on this since 2008, but it's not our fault. The state has preempted us all these years. So this is the first opportunity we've had. So the public needs to know that as well, that this is really the first chance we've had to deal with, this issue on the beach and in the park. So I'm thrilled that we're able to do this.
I also think we need to shout out to this past year's House and Senate and Governor for finally approving it. It was a lot of work, like you said, and Broward League of Cities took a position, the Florida League of Cities took a position for many years, and then we were able to get the House, Senate, and Governor to approve it. And so hopefully you guys can keep working on the film tax credit too. It'll take a lot of lobbying from the city and involve Broward League of Cities and Florida League of Cities. I think that would be something great we can do also.
That'll be really important. Hopefully they will understand that.
Okay. Who wants the last word?
You.
Okay. Please call the roll. Has it been introduced?
It's actually me. Yes.
Introduce it.
I
Yeah,
did.
it was
Yes.
I thought it. I thought
Vice
it-
Mayor Sorensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas,
Yes.
Mayor Trentalles.
Yes.
Mayor, if I
So
could
that
just.
has, wait, hold on. So that has now passed on first reading. Yes, Vice Mayor.
Okay, sorry. Just want to share, Heather, I just got this email from a resident that says, if the question from that HOA president on the turtles was about a gopher tortoise and not just a turtle, there's been a movement from FWS to change its status from threatened to endangered, and that could affect the project.
Okay, I
So-
don't know. I just saw the word turtle. I'll get it back up, but I did connect Phil already to that president.
Gopher
via
tortoise, so
Email.
tortoise,
So,
yeah.
Phil, good luck with that. And burrowing owls, we had a few of those out there too, but I'm sure we'll
Right.
keep those safe.
Are we gonna have to dim the runway
Phil's on it.
lights?
They probably moved over from Inner Miami to that parcel.
Migrated.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just want to share that. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, we have 4 more items. Let's see how we can get through them. This is OSR 1, a second reading. The ordinance amending the City of Fort Lauderdale Unified Land Development Regulations to revise Section 47-13.30, Table of Dimensional Requirements for the SRAC districts, and all the rest of that stuff. Anyone have any questions with regard to this? This has to do with height and density incentives in connection with affordable housing. Anyone have any questions?
I do want just clarification that the communication we got from Ms. Toothaker today, so was it in the first reading that we said we would go to 200 units per acre for affordable housing?
So I can
Or just an
explain
amendment?
that. So when this was on first reading, a request was made for us to look a little bit more closely at the incentives offered in the South Regional Activity Center. And that's the topic of the attachment or the exhibit that you received yesterday or today that the mayor mentioned earlier. So the request was made the original policy that the city presented on first reading was that there was a density bonus of an additional 50 units per acre for a 5% set aside. The request was made to allow for additional increments of 50 units per acre up to 200 units for an additional 5% set aside per 50 units. So if you wanted to go from the 50 unit by right up to 100, you would have to set aside 5% affordable units. If you wanted to do 150, another 5%. If you wanted to do up to 200, another 5%. So that's what's in that document that you received today. The other request was to look at additional height. The policy that we brought forward to you was to allow for a call-up process if they're providing affordable units to go up to 150 feet, whereas now it's a request to the commission to go up 50 feet in the South Rack. The request was to add an additional 50 feet in height for another 5% set aside of affordable housing. So that's incorporated in that as well. The one thing I will say is that when staff analyzed that, we decided that because the South Rack does abut some residential on the southern end, that we thought it appropriate to cut that incentive off at southeast or south 18th Court.
So
we
more of a
did-
transition zone in that area?
Right, because past that, you're immediately up against, I believe it's Croissant Park. So we thought it best to only allow that additional height north of that area where it's adjacent to, I think it's B1, B2, ROA, and ROC zoning districts.
So what is the maximum height then, if we do allow the 200 units per acre? How tall could these buildings go
So
generally?
currently in the South Rack, all the way through, somebody can come in today. The max height that they can do is 150. So it's 110 by right. They can come in and request to the commission to go up to 150 feet. The policy we originally presented said instead of coming to the commission to get that additional 40 feet, it would be a call-up process if you provided affordable housing. What the document has now is an additional 50 feet up to 200 for an additional set-aside of affordable housing.
Right, I see that, but is it still 150 feet, the height? Or, I mean, are we expanding width or height? But,
Yeah. Yep, so right now.
okay, so
if
right
you
now it's
provi- yeah.
150 feet is the
Yep.
height.
Yep, and so with this
What will it go to
additional-
if it's 200 units per
Yes.
acre?
Well, that won't affect the height.
That
It's a-
won't affect
It's
the
a
height.
form-based code, so
200.
basically the form of the building is already defined in terms of mass, height, that
Oh,
sort
the
of thing.
units are just smaller.
So it's whatever units could fit in there.
Okay, so they're just-
Still
okay.
with the traffic analysis, still looking at adequacy and that sort of thing in the review process.
In the Uptown plan that we did, what percentage was affordable housing when we gave the bonus density requirement? We went from 50 units per acre to 100, but what percentage was set aside for affordable? 5% seems kind of low to me.
I'm gonna let Adam.
5% of the units are
So
affordable?
there was it's actually 10%, not 5%. So it'd be a 10% set aside requirement for the base level incentives, and then additional set aside requirements in order to get the additional incentives for additional height and density.
So it's 10% is the base, and then you
10%
get
is
an
the
additional
base.
5% of affordable units if you go up in those 50 units per acre.
The Uptown area was a ratio, a 1-to-2 and a 1-to-4 ratio.
Okay, so I think we went from 50 to 100. It's 50 units per acre to 100 units per acre. I think that was the incentive that we gave.
That was the original incentive for the South Rack. The Uptown area was 50 to 100 for the Uptown area, but the ratios is 1-to-2 and 1-to-4.
Okay. I mean, 5% seems a little bit low to me, but I mean, I guess if you guys are okay with it, giving all that height and,
So in totality, it would be a 15% set aside in order to get the 200 feet.
because it's, yeah, the 10% plus the additional 5%.
Correct.
I'm having a problem with this being able to buy yourself out of this problem.
I can't hear you.
What's that?
What'd you say?
You can all these things are we're instituting all of these requirements, but then you can buy yourself out, a payment in lieu. Yeah, if you look on
I
page.
see payment, yeah, I
If you
saw
look
it.
at page 18.
You wanna strike
Payment
that?
in lieu of affordable housing. So even though we require all of these, we have all these requirements to be able to go higher and so forth, at the end of the day, you can say, okay, I'm going to opt out. I'm just going to write you a check and buy myself out of these affordable housing requirements. The problem is the payment in lieu goes to, it can go to the city, but the problem is, how much money are we talking about? And I just want the affordable housing built. I don't want people to opt out. I mean, we have an affordable housing crisis. And for a developer to pay $10,000 or $20,000 to buy themselves out is not going to provide affordable housing for our city. And so, can't we just excise that part out of this? Why are we allowing people to do that?
So we can and we can't. So it depends on what units they're accessing to create that housing. So if they're using city rack units or our flex units, we have that control over that policy. However, a lot of the units that are going to be coming online and the units that are going to be available in our regional activity centers and our flex zones are going to be the ones allocated by the county through the Geller Amendment, and that has a payment in lieu option that we would need to include in our
I
policy.
think it's only like $10,000.
Well, currently it's 43 and change, but there's an amendment going forward to reduce it to $10,000 per unit throughout the entire development, so not just the affordable units.
Do we have to follow their laws?
What's that?
Are we preempted by the county? Do we have to follow that? Or can we create our own more strict requirements and not allow the payment in lieu of?
If we secure additional units,
Well, there are no units. I think it's just a whole new plan. It's like the Geller plan. But do we have to follow it, or can we be more strict?
We could be stricter in the way that we could increase that amount.
So Mayor,
What about the option piece?
yeah, go ahead.
I don't want a developer to be able to opt out. We need the affordable housing.
So Chris, can we strike that out?
I think we should.
Well, then you're not going to get the units. The only way
Sorry?
you're going to get the only way you're going to get the units through the Geller Amendment is because you're going to be out of units. So
Right, but you could strike it for the city the pools of units that we have available to us now through the flex pool and the rack units.
right, but they're talking about the Geller unit.
No, you couldn't, no.
Right. You can't do that.
We can't be more strict than the Geller
You
Amendment.
can be more strict in the sense that you're going to charge more, but you can't.
We can't just X them out.
So the Geller concept is just you can't get these additional units.
If you build them on a commercial corridor.
So if you want to do a project and you present it, you can't get additional units unless you use. It's only dealing with the flex units, right?
I think Geller's only an incentive-based program, isn't it? Like you
Right.
can
Pretty
get
much.
more density by building affordable housing, but if you don't build the affordable housing, you can pay. Mayor's saying he doesn't want the
I see
payment.
the former DST.
And this is all new. I don't even know if it's come online yet.
But in the end, Commissioner Moritas, if you look at page 18, number 8, it says affordable housing set-aside requirements may be satisfied via an in lieu payment to the City of Fort Lauderdale Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Again, we haven't established a dollar figure, and I still think that whatever the amount would be is still not going to build us more affordable housing units. It's just simply going to be a way to buy yourself out of this.
I agree with you. You need to talk to
The next
Geller.
paragraph, affordable unit requirements may be satisfied via an in lieu payment to the Broward County Affordable Housing Trust Fund based on the Florida Housing Finance Corporation most recent total development cost per unit base limitations. And I do believe they're trying to get that down to $10,000, which is pennies. You want to have any comments about that?
The only thing I
Anthony?
wanted to add was just to remind the commission that would be split between us and the county. That money can go towards a wide variety of affordable housing projects. I would just remind you not to think just of like a tower in the downtown or something like that. You can use it to build single-family homes. You can use it to build townhomes, stuff that we typically don't see in the affordable range without some sort of support from the city. So it is a revenue stream to our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I just wanted to put that out there so you consider that in your.
All right, so let's say it's $10,000 and there's 50 units, that's $500,000. Now, how many townhouses are you going to be able to build with that?
But again, it's just a revenue stream. So
Fine.
once the fund has revenue going towards it, you build it up and then you use it however you like it, gap financing, whatever myriad of options you want to put.
Okay,
Yeah, but
well,
I
let's
still
take
think-
let
I
me
still
finish. Let's
think-
take an example. Okay, so there's $600,000 in our Affordable Housing Trust Fund right now, and the county screwed up the street, and now because they didn't build their affordable housing project in a timely fashion, it's now going to cost $5 million more than was originally priced at. So they're coming to the city saying, okay, we want $2.5 million. Okay, and they're going to pay $2.5 million. And we said, well, where are we supposed to get $2.5 million? And 600,000 is not going to cut it. And so these numbers are getting crazy. I'd rather they just build the affordable housing.
No, I understand, and I just put it out there as part of
I
your
know.
conversation.
I know we're not debating this. I'm just we're trying to get clarity here on how are we going to best get affordable housing.
So
So
let me ask you this.
to your point,
Yeah, go ahead.
how do we deal with that language? So can someone in this room answer the question? How can we deal with that language?
How do we deal with that? We can just take it out.
No, he said we can't.
So-
With regards to the city's units.
The city's units, we're comfortable if you want to remove it for the city's units. I just don't believe that we can do it for the Geller Amendment because we have to be substantially.
Well, the Geller
compliance with
Amendment
that.
only applies if we secure additional units.
No, we're almost
That's
out
not
of
how it
units.
works. The
Yeah.
Geller Amendment is a.
That's what I was
stream
asking.
Of market rate units based on a ratio of affordable units. So it's a continuous stream of units, how it's written. We don't have to ask for it, you can just do it. So it's not a comp plan amendment, it's not the typical generation of units that we've gone through in the past.
Okay.
So when does that come into play?
I'm
The
sorry,
Geller Amendment. When does that come into play in terms
the
of?
amendment?
Yeah, like if I'm a developer, when does that come into play? Would I ask for
At the
something?
time of
Yeah.
submittal, so, if this was adopted in some form tonight, and we were out of flex units or any other pools of units that we had,
Right.
the only generation of units, especially inside the rack and along the corridors, which is where this is targeted, would be through that Geller Amendment.
Right.
Oh, so it is when we run out and we're needing
And
additional.
it has to be along commercial corridors. That's what that's what Senator Geller has told me many times. He's saying that if you build along commercial corridors, you get that bump up in units. But a lot of these projects aren't going to be on commercial corridors, so we may not bump up against the county's ordinance here.
So Mayor,
Without a
if I
commercial
may
co-
answer that, so the map that's provided with the Geller Amendment essentially mirrors our unified flex zone map in our regional activity centers as eligible areas for those units to go.
So you're saying all the areas are? If we want additional units. How many units do we have now?
If we run out of
We're
units.
about to run out.
We are. We just got an allocation from the county today of our remaining flex units. It's about 3,000 and change, and they're virtually all spoken for.
Yep. So
We have
still-
some rack units. South rack has about 260. There's some in the northwest rack, but in terms of other areas, we need units.
Well, we don't want the county getting all the money in lieu. We would want the city to get some of the money in lieu.
Yeah, the catch is it's split 50-50.
So
If they're using the Geller units, if we were to put any sort of payment in lieu of on our units that we talked about, our rec units and flex units, it would go to us. But anything that's through the Geller amendment is split 50-50.
So if it's split, will we be a donor city, meaning they can take their 50% and build affordable housing in a different city? Or,
They can do whatever they want with their
oh,
share.
that's bad.
No one never really builds them. I mean, unless you concentrate in areas or through CRAs and things of that nature, where that happens. Unless it's those 3 units that we've seen right here on Andrews and six, right? Am I correct, man? That's what we really seen. It
I think
happened.
you're right. I think
But
so.
in a traditional project, developers just aren't going to say, "Hey, I want to, build these units."
I think you're right.
Well, maybe if the Geller Amendment is still being amended, we need to send a communication to tell them we don't like the payment in lieu of, especially paying the county. Why are we paying the county?
Well, I don't want to cut off our nose to spite our face here. I want to be able to find ways to ensure that we're going to have affordable housing in the city of Fort Lauderdale. Just giving a payment in lieu is not going to get us there. So, but if we're going to be trumped by a county ordinance that will funnel money to them in order to get by this requirement, I don't want that to happen either.
Another thing to consider on top of the fact that once we're out of units, we're kind of at a dead stop when it comes to being able to generate those units for those areas that we talked about. We can do future amendments to the ordinance based on changes to the Geller Amendment. So we already had this one change after it was first adopted, which was to change the percentages for square footage associated with commercial and to change the pay in lieu of fee. So I would just suggest that in terms of inclusionary zoning, this is about as close as we're probably ever going to get because these aren't by right units. They're just generated as a stream of market with a ratio of affordable, which is something that we've really strived for. So it's a really good option for the city to consider, and I understand the conversation. We've had several similar conversations internally, and we've met with Commissioner Geller to talk about some of these things. But we're kind of where we are is, this is what's happening today. It doesn't mean that it can't change in the future, and we could definitely advocate for something like that and have those discussions.
Yeah, I think if the Geller Amendment allows the positive of the increased units at affordable rates. So I think that we get the positive and it's not ideal in lieu of, but I'm all for communicating with the county, but I don't know if that changes much. I think the more where we have the delta opportunity is with our own ordinance to increase our own in lieu of if we want to.
Whatever it's going to take to get there, I don't know whether a developer is going to pay $50,000 a unit to opt out. I mean, that's almost like a penalty.
So what about my original idea when I said maybe it should be more than 5%? Maybe it is 10%. You need to build 10% affordable housing in order to get the bonus density. And if you don't, so that's the only way we have, that's the only part we have control over, just like you said, Commissioner Vice Mayor.
Well, I'll tell you what, why don't we just go with it as is and see what results. If we find everybody buying out their obligation, then we need to change the ordinance.
Something else is just to remember what you're adopting today is the existing pay in lieu of fee of the $43,000 and change. So if the Geller Amendment does alter, we can come back and talk to you about what you would like to do at that point.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
So you can always keep the 43,000 and maybe they don't pay out,
Okay.
right? Maybe they build it because it's too expensive to
We
buy
have
out.
Mr. Crosby.
Right.
Are you still in the audience? Mr. Crosby? Yes.
I'd
Thank you,
up it-
gentlemen.
Up it to 10%.
Good evening, everyone. I'm in support of the amendment of the change of the zoning. The only request that I have would be to extend the height to 20th Street as opposed to 18th Street. I feel that I've been the property owner on Andrews Avenue for 22 years. Been there a long time, waiting for the redevelopment, waiting for this whole movement to happen, and it's kind of stopping just short of where we're at. And I look at First Avenue, and it looks like a kind of a natural separation between the commercial portion and the residential in the back. And I've been to a few meetings, and it's for the neighborhood association, and it seems to be mixed, which, you know, way people like to go, but that's my only thought process.
Where do you want to extend it to?
20th Street?
I'm looking at the map. I'm looking at the exhibit, and I don't see where it says from Progresso Drive to 7th Avenue. No, excuse me, 24th Avenue. Where are you talking about? 18th Street.
So it's going to stop at the Wells Fargo property now, and First Avenue comes down and curves back into Andrews Avenue at 20th.
Yeah, but
And-
this map doesn't show anywhere near 20th. It stops at Broward Boulevard. Am I looking at the right map? It's your attachment.
No, it's at the south end. I show this. Yeah.
So is Exhibit 2 no longer accurate? What does this show us? What does this show us?
There you go.
Okay. All right, so he is suggesting, if you can see my cursor, this is Southwest 20th, which is just to the east of Croissant Park.
So on the
I think
east side of the property.
yeah, so I think if I were looking at this, you could make a case to extend it to that street only in the South Rack, what is it, SE East, which is east of Andrews from 20th North, because it's still only really abuts non-residential on that side.
What does Exhibit 2 mean? What's Exhibit 2? It's attached to this item. Are we
Is
not looking
Exhibit
at
2
the
the
same
maps?
item?
Yes, it's the policy boundary
Correct.
maps.
So it's the fourth map. It's the last map that shows South Rack SAE and SAW. It's green and bluish purple. That's the boundaries of the South Regional Activity Center.
Right, but what is the first thing on Exhibit 2? What does that mean? It says MU height bonus geographic boundary. What does this mean?
That's the geographic boundary of the South Regional Activity Centers.
Okay, so what relevance does this map have to our discussion?
This is the specific boundary in which we're discussing tonight for the additional height and additional density. But we are proposing to the terminus of the additional height. Staff is requesting at Southwest 18th Court. The gentleman behind me is requesting to essentially adjust the height down to 1 street south to 20th.
I'm okay with that, if it makes sense to staff.
Well, 18th Court is where Broward House is, right? It's just, I used to own property right there, so I know, I'm very, very familiar with this neighborhood. So west of US 1 on 18th Court is where Broward House is. You want to put a 200 feet building there? That's not going to happen.
Which one?
This is single-family home neighborhood.
Right.
These are one-story buildings throughout that entire neighborhood. And you want to put 200-foot buildings there?
But not
That's
between,
nuts.
not between Andrews and First.
I'm
There's-
sorry? You're talking about along just the Andrews corridor?
Right, so what I suggested if we were to entertain that request is to only do it in the South Rack SAE, which is the portion of the South Rack that is to the east of Andrews Avenue.
I know, but these are all one-story buildings here. This is where TAP 42 is, where United Way is. I mean, you want to put a 200-foot building there?
Right, but I think, remember, anything in the South Rack right now can go up to 150 feet.
And now you want to make it worse?
I'm just saying, if you're going to increase that height to 18th Court,
come on, folks, we have to protect our neighborhoods. And to want to put such intense development there, just because somebody's going to make a payment in lieu of having to build affordable housing, this is a little screwy.
Right, but when we analyzed it, that's why we settled on Southeast 18th Court. We thought it was the most appropriate cutoff for that additional height increase.
Does anybody else have any, Commissioner, Vice Mayor, this is your district.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? You okay with this?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to change the boundaries right now because we've been spending a lot of time with neighborhoods and Chris has been helping. So happy to consider it, but I would just need more, I need time to kind of engage with the neighborhoods. So I share your concern, Mayor, just for right now.
And I will say we went to the Poinciana Park Civic Association early on in this, after first reading, and they did support our original cutoff of 18th Street. When we got a request to go down to 18th Court, we took it back to them. They didn't take a position. We just listened to their comments, and it was a mix of favorable and I would say not favorable, but just.
Well, it goes down to 23rd Street. I don't understand the question. You want it to go down to 18th Court, but it goes all the way down to 23rd Street.
The reason we cut it off at 18th Quarter, that was our recommendation, was mainly because of Croissant Park to the west. We thought that there needed to be a transition between the South Rack, where we had the additional height, and the residential to the west. So that's why we selected 18th Court, because along that corridor to the west, it's primarily non-residential zoning districts.
There's a lot of businesses there. I get that. But I'm looking at your exhibit here, and I see, all right, we're looking at different maps now. All right.
Yeah, the exhibit that was with the backup was the original exhibit that was with the ordinance on first reading. The subsequent recommendation is what was provided to you from the clerk yesterday.
Can I ask you a question? This thing that you now have on our screen, where is it attached to this item? How are we supposed to make an informed decision? Was it attached to this exhibit? To this item?
It was not attached to the exhibit that was provided last night. There wasn't a map attached.
On page 4, we have a green shaded in area and a purple shaded in area. What does that represent?
So the green is the South Rack SA East, which is east of Andrews, and the other shade, purple shade, is the SE.
Okay, and that goes down to 23rd Street.
Right, that goes all the way through to 23rd Street.
And this gentleman is asking us to go down to 18th Court, but this goes past 18th Court.
So our recommendation was 18th Court, as I said.
Where does it say that?
It's in the code language that was provided to you yesterday. In the section that talks about the height increase, it reads that in the South Regional Activity Center, for properties located north of South 18th Court, the additional 50 feet in height is allowable.
And what did you present to the neighborhood? It's to 18th?
So we originally presented to 18th.
Right.
We got a request to move it down to 18th Court. We thought that there was
Who
merit to it.
requested moving down to 18th Court?
property owner that has property in that area between
Okay.
18th Street and 18th Court, has some
Okay.
interest there. So we thought it met the same rationale that we chose when we originally went out with Southeast 18th Court, and so we went back to the Civic Association last week and ran it by them.
Okay, and you went to Point Siena. Did you go to Croissant Park?
I don't know about the last meeting. I know the original meeting, they were invited to the meeting, and there were some attendees from Croissant Park and I think Harbordale.
Okay, and they were good with what, 18th Street, but not 18th, they weren't presented 18th
They didn't take a
Court.
position on 18th Court when we met with them last week. They just heard it, provided some feedback, but didn't take a position as an association.
Point Siena Park.
Mhm.
Were there Croissant Park people there? Like, the
Right.
second one was what?
So Croissant Park and Harbordale were at the second.
Were there and did not object to 18th Court.
No, they didn't take a
Okay.
position.
So Mayor, I just wouldn't want to go past beyond what the neighborhood is understanding.
You know what? I'll take your direction. This
Yeah.
is your district, so whatever you recommend, I will agree to.
So I think it's happy to start to talk about 20th. And so, Chris, my view is, hey, if you think it makes sense, which I'm open to that discussion, let's go back to the neighborhoods to talk about does going to 20th make sense or not, and their feedback as a starting point. And then if it does make sense, then we can bring it back to extend, but let's approve what we've got here. Is that fair, Anthony? Is that, okay, all right.
So what is the conclusion?
So basically, I'll move this forward and engage with the neighborhoods on possibly extending
To 18th Court?
to
Okay.
20.
Mr. Bruton, did you want to add anything to
20th.
this conversation? You just support the item. A man of few words.
Yeah, so approve as is. Alan, is this making sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, we just need to be clear what we're approving tonight. So if we're approving as is, do we need to change the exhibit here? Because that seems to be an inaccurate exhibit.
So I would ask that we approve with the addition of the additional information that was provided to the commission to add that to the ordinance.
Clerk, do you
I don't know
have
if we
that?
need to read that in.
Mr. City Clerk, do you have that?
I have a copy of it, and it was sent to the commission last night,
Well, I wasn't reading anything last night.
or yesterday afternoon.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
I can read it in if we need to, Alan.
So would someone like to introduce the ordinance? On
Yeah.
Second reading?
I'll introduce it.
Okay. The ordinance has been introduced. Please call the roll.
Just before, so just so we're clear, if we're introducing it as, are we changing anything that's actually on the agenda? Because we need to be clear on the record.
Right.
So we are changing the ordinance that was adopted on first reading to include the sections that were provided in the backup that was provided to the clerk and the commission. Which I can read into the record section. by-
Please read it into the record so that we know, because that's, it's too vague.
Okay. Thank you. Read it. All right, and I do want to be clear, I believe from the commission's direction, you would not like us to include the amendment to the payment in lieu of on city pools of units.
I'll do whatever the vice mayor wants to do.
I agree with that statement, Mayor.
Sorry, I didn't hear what Chris said.
So there was a conversation about whether or not there was a payment in lieu of for the city pools of units, so the rack units and flex units, and that was part of this exhibit. So I get the feeling that there was not interest in doing that, so I would not read that into the record if that's the case.
Not read in the in lieu.
Right.
So there, in other words, you're saying there would be no in lieu of
For the city pools of
for the
units.
city portion.
So is
Okay.
that's the 3,000 units that we currently have been given by the county?
Flex units and rack units.
Right, and that we have about 3,000 as of right now. So those 3,000 units that we currently have that we'll never get more of,
Right.
they can't buy those
Buy
out.
out of it. So,
Guarantees at least 3,000 affordable
Rather,
units.
I'd
Right.
rather we didn't give them that option.
didn't have that option.
Right.
And then they
so
will be able to buy
I'm-
out the next.
We already
Right.
have the units, right? We don't even need the Geller units. So if they gave us 3,000 units, we don't need the Geller units.
Not until those run out, but he said those have been accounted for already. They've already been distributed to projects that are in the queue.
Well, I think we'll still need the Geller units.
We'll need those as soon as they give the flex units to the
Right.
projects that are in
You're
the queue.
basically, you're out of units.
Yeah, or
Right.
out of units,
You're
just
out of
those
units.
So we
3,000.
need,
Yeah, there are units already.
So the
Right.
killer
But-
factor comes into play.
So we're,
I just want to make sure that we're not harming ourselves in any way if we get rid of the payment in lieu. Is there any downside to this, or are we in any way cutting off our nose to spite our face? Or
and that doesn't impact
I just
That
want
was
to
my
make
expression.
sure.
developers. I just don't know the.
It would just require the developers, if they were availing themselves of those incentives, to set aside those units rather than make a payment in lieu of to buy out.
Okay, so I'm good with that. I mean, is
That's
that all
only if
making
they're
sense?
trying
So
to get additional height bonus
Right.
based
or-
on,
or
yeah.
density.
eliminate, yep,
Eliminate the
eliminate
payment
the in lieu of.
So they won't be able to get any height other than what is.
They will.
They can get height,
They just can't buy out of it.
just can't buy out of it.
Just can't buy
They have
out
to
of it.
build the actual
Have
units.
to actually build the affordable housing units, the 10% or 15, as the case may be.
Whatever it is in that area.
We need affordable housing.
And I know we just, I mean,
Yeah.
I know we need it, but sometimes when it comes to us, we see it in the face and we don't approve it. We just approved something. My district which was all affordable housing. We had an opportunity to capitalize something there, but here, if we take that terminology out, they're forced to
Build the 10%.
build the 10%.
Correct.
But we're out of units.
What's that?
We're out of units.
No, just got 3,000 units.
They're spoken for, he said.
Those are gone.
Say they're spoken for,
No,
but
those are gone.
They're gone.
Yeah, those are.
So now Geller Amendment comes into play. This is what we're talking about today. Geller Amendment is the only thing in play. Everything else is spoken for. Everything else has been denied, or we are talking about now this specific item, this rack, and this applying to. Because if we go back and talk about the 3,000 units that don't exist because they're spoken for.
Well, let's dig into what that means, spoken for.
Yep.
Have we approved them at this commission to sign? Have we approved site plans and to approve these allocations on these so-called spoken for projects?
For most of them.
I'm
There are
sorry?
for most of them. There are some still in the pipeline under review.
So what is foremost? Give me a number.
Oh, I don't have a
Well,
number,
this-
but
then this
it's
whole
it
ordinance
gets
is
getting
moot.
close. I don't have it in front of me, but it's getting close to the maximum number of units that we have allocated to us at all.
All right, but Anthony, this whole thing becomes moot because once the site plan's approved, they're under the old rules. We're creating new rules for units we don't even have.
And we created new rules for the Geller Amendment and the South Rack, if I am understanding this correctly.
But you have to think about the units that are associated with projects that don't get constructed. If they go back into the pool because they expire, then now we have those units back. I mean, the unit count goes up and down based on where we are with expiration dates on existing projects. We also have projects that have put units back into the pool. So Marina Lofts, they put several hundred units back into the pool.
Yeah, but the problem is, Anthony, that I've been sitting on this commission for almost 20 years, and that 18-month time period gets extended and extended and extended.
You're absolutely right, but the
Generation goes by and
current
they're still-
governor has changed the way the previous governor did it. So we're not seeing those extensions the way we used to. And I mean, it's hard to say what's going to happen in the future, but anticipating that you would see units go back into those pools, you would have the ability to have more influence over how those units are allocated and the money that's associated
And the
with it.
units that would go back into the pool would fall under the regulation of the city's
For those,
ordinance.
yes.
For
So
those,
what you
not
do tonight
the
can
Geller
impact
amendment.
what happens with
Right.
those later.
So even if we don't have any right now, it's possible and likely that we will get some in the future.
I mean, I'm not talking thousands of units.
Right. But everyone matters I think in all of our minds. And that would it would eliminate the in lieu of for those units that might come back under our purview.
Yes.
Right. So I think it still matters, Mayor.
And also for any outstanding.
What do you
that we
mean,
have
Ben? Explain.
It matters in that even though we are basically out of units or close to out of units, there will be more units put in that bucket that the city can require building rather than in lieu of. So
Okay.
that can happen, and the Geller Amendment action can happen.
All right, so let's just eliminate 8A since we can't really impact Broward County's policies.
Right. Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay. So,
So going back to what Vice Mayor said, I'm just a little skeptical. If we take it out, is it going to impact what we're trying to do with what is in front of us now?
no, because we're not affecting the Broward County policy, just affecting.
We're not?
Right.
But Alan said we could make it stricter. We could even make the number higher in payment, lieu in payment.
You can make the payment higher.
On our side.
Didn't
Yeah.
you?
That's what we believe we can do, but again, this is so new, nothing's been tested, so.
But they're still all working on all their amendments.
Well,
Right, correct.
Maybe we should just wait till November till they figure out what they're doing first. And then.
well, we would,
Yeah, I'd say let Broward do what they're going to do for the time being, and we can adjust ours independently.
we will have to come back anyway and determine whether or not we want to amend our ordinance to meet the new pay in lieu of fee.
take it out then?
Given the situation that we're in with the amount of units that we have and the number of projects that are still coming through the pipeline, I'm not sure it would be a prudent thing to wait until November to make a decision on second reading for this.
I agree. At least it saves a few affordable housing units now. I think we should move it and then come back after the Geller Amendment and the amount is approved, and you all can decide if we're not here, whether it's 43,000 or 10,000 or however much the payout is.
So move it as is because we have the flexibility to amend it, and then we could take the language out and add, take away, or what we want to do.
But we're moving it as
Yeah.
is with Chris's language that he
As
Right.
is with Chris's.
Okay.
Except we're striking
Addition.
that one
All right, let's do it.
clause that
Yeah.
Chris just mentioned.
All right, so what's the ordinance now then?
Striking
Somebody
the
introduce
payout
it.
for the
What
$3,000.
are we doing? I want to move this thing along. What are we doing?
I'm going to read the changes into the record for the South Rack sections. So section 47-13.30, note A, will delete 150 and add 200. Section 47-13.30, note B, will delete 150, add 200. Section 47-13-51, B1, delete 150, add 200. Add new section 4723.16.B.1.B.4. 200 feet for development on property with a South Rack District zoning designation and north of Southwest Southeast 18th Court that restricts an additional 5% of dwelling units in the development by deed for rental or to be sold to a person or household with an annual gross income less than or equal to 100% of the MFI. Section 4723.16.B.2.B.I, delete not to exceed 100 dwelling units per acre based on the following formula. Add in accordance with the following limitations. Section 47-23.16.B.2.B.1, add for a maximum density of 100 dwelling units per acre. Section 47-23.16.B.2.B.I.2, add in addition to the density bonus provided in section 47-23.16.B.2.B.1.1, an additional 50 dwelling units per acre may be permitted for every 5% increase of dwelling units restricted by deed or rental, or to be sold to a person or household with an annual gross income less than or equal to 100% of the MFI. The maximum density of the development shall not exceed 200 dwelling units per acre. Each restricted residential dwelling unit shall have a minimum floor area of 400 square feet. And renumber section 47-23.16.B.2.B.I.2 to section 47-23.16.B.2.B.1.3. And that is all.
Okay. Someone like to introduce that ordinance?
Introduced.
Introduce as amended?
As amended.
Please call the roll.
An ordinance of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, amending the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida's Unified Land Development regulations, more specifically Section 47-13.30 entitled Table of Dimensional Requirements for the SRAC Districts to modify the development permit approval process for developments applying for height or affordable housing density bonuses within the SRAC districts, amending Section 47-13.31 entitled Table of Dimensional Requirements for the NWRAC-MU district of the ULDR to modify development permit approval process for developments applying for height or affordable housing density bonuses within the NWRAC-MU districts, amending Section 47-13.51 entitled SRAC-SA Special Regulations of the ULDR to add new performance standards and criteria for additional height bonus, amending Section 47-13.52 entitled NWRAC-MU Special Regulations of the ULDR to delete provisions related to performance standards and criteria for affordable housing height incentive and add reference to the new Affordable Housing Code, Section 47-23.16, amending Section 47-20.3 entitled Reductions and Exceptions of the ULDR to update affordable housing multifamily parking reduction standards, creating Section 47-23.16 entitled Affordable Housing Regulations of the ULDR, providing for definitions, incentives, exemptions, general requirements, and expedited review process, amending Section 47-24.1 entitled General Table 1 Development Permits and Procedures of the ULDR, modifying the development review process for certain development permits and deleting portions of Section 47-37B.3 entitled Applicability and General Regulations of the ULDR related to increased density through the allocation of affordable housing units, provided for severability, providing for conflicts and repeal, providing for correction of scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and that ordinance is approved on second reading. Second reading, OSR 2, ordinance amending the City of Fort Lauderdale Code of Ordinances, streets and sidewalks to update sidewalk installation requirements. Anyone have any questions with regard to this? There being none, someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduced.
Been introduced. Please call the roll.
An ordinance of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida by amending Article 2 entitled Construction and Repair of Sidewalks to create Section 25-40 entitled Declarations and Intent, Section 25-45 entitled Definitions, and Section 25-62 entitled Requirements for New Development and Site Alterations to amend Section 25-41 entitled Enforcement, Section 25-42 entitled Contractors, etc., violating Article Section 25-43 entitled Sidewalks constructed contrary to this article, Section 25-44 entitled Supervision by City, Section 25-56 entitled Duty of Owner of Abutting Property, Section 25-57 entitled With Material, Grade, etc., Section 25-58 entitled Determination of Necessity for Construction, Reconstruction, or Repair, Section 25-59 entitled Notice of Owners to Construct, Reconstruct, Repair, etc., and Section 25-60 entitled Contents of Notice Service, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinance provisions, codification and correction of scrivener errors, and for an effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and OSR 2 is now approved. OSR 3, second reading, ordinance amending the City of Fort Lauderdale Code of Ordinances, Chapter 9, Building and Construction, Article 2, Permits and Inspections, Division 2, Fees to adjust building fees for services related to land development and permitting. Anyone have any questions? There being none, someone like to introduce the ordinance on second reading. It's been introduced.
An ordinance of the city. An ordinance of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, amending Section 9-48 general permit fees of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida by increasing permit fees by 25%, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinance provisions, and effective date. Commissioner Glassman?
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie? Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis?
Yes, and OSR 3 is now approved on second reading. OSR 4, second reading, quasi-judicial ordinance, rezoning .87 acres from Broward County Commercial Warehouse District to Community Business District. Anyone wishing to speak must be sworn in, and the commission will announce any site visits, communications, or expert opinions received and make them a part of the record. Commissioner Moritas, any
Nothing new
disclosures? None?
from Andrew. Yep.
I'm sorry?
Nothing new.
Okay. Commissioner McKenzie, okay.
Nothing new.
Nothing new.
Nothing additional myself either. Mr. Shine, do you have anything to say? Okay. Do I hear a motion to close public hearing?
Moved. Second.
Commissioner
call the
Glassman.
roll.
Yes.
Commissioner McKenzie. Vice Mayor Sorensen.
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas.
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, public hearing is now closed. Do I hear someone like to introduce the ordinance?
Introduced.
It's been introduced. Please call the roll.
An ordinance amending section 47-1.6.b of the City of Fort Lauderdale, Florida Unified Land Development Regulations through the revision of the official zoning map of the City of Fort Lauderdale and Schedule A revised compilation attached thereto and by reference made a part thereof, so as to rezone from commercial warehouse district of Broward County zoning code to community business lots 40, 41, 42 in the east 5.80 feet of lot 39 less the south 5 feet thereof, together with the south 65 feet of lots 11, 12, and 13 and the south 65 feet of the east 5.80 feet of lot 14, all of Block 2, Northwest Lauderdale, according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 25, page 25 of the Public Records of Broward County, Florida, located west of Northwest 24th Avenue, Northwest 19th Street, east of Northwest 27th Avenue, and south of Northwest 20th Street, all said lands being in the City of Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida. Commissioner Glassman? Yes. Commissioner McKenzie? Yes. Vice Mayor Sorensen?
Yes.
Commissioner Moritas?
Yes.
Mayor Trentalis.
Yes, and OSR 4 is now approved on second reading. Before we conclude, I have a couple of announcements. First of all, for our friends and neighbors of the Jewish faith, I'd like to wish you all a very happy Rosh Hashanah New Year. Is there a phrase in Hebrew?
There you go.
What?
You could go Lashana Tova or just Shana
Okay.
Tova.
All right. Well,
Yes.
no one could hear that from the audience, so. And I'm not going to be able to attend our next commission meeting. So, after all these years, Vice Mayor, it's yours to run.
Wonderful. What a chance. Thanks. We'll miss you, but we'll try not to screw things up.
Well, I know you will.
It is your moment.
That's right.
Right to
We'll shine.
Any announcements, Mr. Boileau?
I have two. I do have a closed door request, and then I have an update on the issue of the contract with the city auditor recruitment.
Okay.
If you wanted to do that, I'll do that first. So on April 5th, 2022, at conference meeting, an item was brought before you with regards to firms, recruitment firms, and a list was provided with two quotes. Actually, there were several listed, but only two quotes that we received responses to. And direction was provided to go, I believe, with, Strategic Government Resources for $24,900. In response to that, a PO, a purchase order, was generated to do those services. Candidly, I'm not a fan of using a PO in lieu of an agreement, but all that being said, it did not violate.
Is that considered an offer?
It doesn't violate our procurement code, so they follow the procurement code. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a fan of using that as an agreement because there's a lot of gaps, but it did not violate the code and they follow procedure.
Okay.
And
So,
then-
do we have to pay the full amount?
Well, that's a good question. That's part of the reason. So the 24,900, I believe, has to be paid. If there's additional, because that was actually for 6 candidates, I believe, but now we had more than that. So if there's an amount additional to that, that's where it gets tricky because the PO is only for 24,900. So
what my understanding is it's not to exceed, and we could look further into that and negotiate a price down because it also, the proposal quantified other things that they have not done. So we certainly have that opportunity to discuss further with the vendor.
and that's why contracts are good to have in place because it takes care of all those things.
Have they been easy to work with?
In the past, yes.
So, they should be okay, especially if they want future work when we do city manager or city attorney or whatever. I mean, it makes sense. They want to
Something you
look
wanna
out for
tell
their
me, or-
future. It makes sense. It
Always
makes-
a joker.
What?
Always a joker.
No, they want to have a good relationship with us, right?
And then very quickly, I just have a real quick closed door
Al-
request. I'm
Alan,
sorry.
but hold on, just for that though, if you're not a fan of the code because it allows for a PO and you're saying it should be a contract, let's change the code.
Well, it's not my decision, so
I know it's
we're
not
in
your decision.
conversations with, we've had
Change it
back
when
and
I'm-
forth with staff on that, and you know, it's actually, we've been discussing it for a couple of years, so, I'll
We
give
can
Ms.
work on that.
Look, I mean, we're
We can
having
work on that.
procurement challenges, so let's
The city
tighten
manager
this
and I
up.
will meet on it and we'll discuss.
We can
Let's
work on
tighten it up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, all right.
And real quick, closed door requests. I'm requesting the advice and counsel of the city commission at our next commission meeting for a personal injury matter, Teresa Grimes versus City of Fort Lauderdale. Case number CACE 21-020984, Division 9. Probably need about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Should we wait
Alan.
till the mayor's back?
I'm sorry?
I don't think you'll be here.
I think we're under a time constraint.
Okay, we'll
I'd have to
decide.
double
I'm
check
not
on
going to be here
that.
at the next meeting, the October
We'll decide without you. Okay.
3rd meeting, October 4th meeting.
We're on a November trial docket, and we have a 10/21 calendar call, so we could possibly push it to the 18th if we need to. But I'll check with council. If we can, we'll just make it for the 18th.
Okay.
Alan, pickleball, when is pickleball?
Pickleball, the
Come and do
financial
us.
analysis, we just received the report or a draft report from Deloitte. I have a comprehensive agreement that was submitted by Ms. Bogdanoff, which I'm beginning to work on. We had to wrap up the movie studio one first.
Right.
So now we're jumping on to the
Okay.
to the
Okay.
pickleball.
So what do you, like October?
Depends on what we're going to have to negotiate. It should be relatively straightforward, although there's only, since we have an active debris management site there may be issues with FDEP, so that might be something that comes up.
Okay.
But I don't know yet what the status of that is.
But I think we have to actually move on that if we want to be able to capture the 2024 season. They
Right.
have
There's a
seasons.
time crunch.
Have seasons. I
Right.
think we need to get this done in October. I do.
Yeah.
So that's next on my list. So we'll hopefully, again, it's relatively straightforward. We already have the financial analysis, but I'm presuming, I haven't read the whole report, but I'm presuming that there are no problems there. I haven't heard of any. And then we'll, again, have to see what FDEP does with regards to the debris management side.
Okay. The mayor left to go play pickleball, I think, Commissioner. Thanks. All right, let's end the meeting. Concluded. Thank you.
Thank you. See, you're starting early.
See?